I watched 51 episodes of a forgotten anime that is best described as if Pokemon and Bakugan came together to have a baby that was then raised by Shadow the Hedgehog. It had a lot of ups, a lot of edge, and a lot of balls. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into KIBA, the toy battler anime geared towards adults. Toy battlers were a huge part of all our childhoods. Every anime fan has pretty much seen at least one of them growing up, so they don't need a lot in terms of introduction, but for the very few that don't exactly know what they are, this is for you. It's a subgenre of shonen with a main gimmick of having kids battle it out using some kind of special tech, cards, monsters, and everything in between. From Yu-Gi-Oh! To Metabots and Beyblades, to some even more forgotten ones like Monsuno. I'm sure you must have seen at least one of them in your years growing up. These type of anime go hand in hand with real-world products such as toys, games, and collectible cards. They sort of act as glorified ads, but actually putting great effort into telling a good story while naturally weaving the toys into the world they are setting. Something I've always found hilarious is how these toys are so influential in their worlds that society has changed to revolve around them, and these get taken to wild extremes. But if it's one thing that all these share in common is that they're geared towards kids, and so have stories that are kid-friendly. Because more than anything, they need kids to be able to get their parents to buy them these toys and other merch, which is where most of their earnings come from. But then in came KIBA, taking the toy battler genre and making it a lot darker, adding themes of war, racism, and death, with a main character who had traits that go against a lot of the typical traits main characters of this genre have. The series was produced by Madhouse and Aniplex and was sponsored by Upper Deck Japan, a trading card game company. The anime was supposed to kick off a franchise with a tie-in collectible card game following suit, but unfortunately that didn't happen. While it was not stated to be the exact cause, my guess is the 3-year legal battle it was stuck in, but more on that later. The premise about KIBA is a pretty cool one. Our main character, Zed, who used to live in a city called Calm, is suddenly transported to another world, one that relies heavily on the power of what they call shards, basically magic. And the people who are born with the ability to use them are called shardcasters. Not only do they have the power to summon the elements through their shards, but they're also able to call for gigantic monsters called spirits to do battle for them. Because what's a toy battler without some semi-sentient being at your beck and call? It's in this world that Zed begins his journey to understand what freedom actually is and get stronger. KIBA is an anime that gets brought up almost never and seems like one of those anime lost to time. Hell, the only reason I remember it is because the first girl I ever had a crush on, when I was like 10, made me watch it with her. But that's story for another day. So get comfy as we dive into the toy battler with a dark spin, KIBA. Calm, a dystopian city forever plagued by nighttime, never seeing the sun. It's as bleak and depressing as it sounds. And it's in this city where our main character, Zed, has spent his whole life in. Zed is a 16-year-old boy going through something of a rebellious phase. He's become quite the notorious troublemaker in his school, and it's gotten so bad the school council just about have had it with him and plan on expelling him, the only person standing up for him being the student council president and his childhood friend, Noah. Zed has been taken in by the police for breaking gates and doors. He's becoming so much of a nuisance that he's left with a warning. If this continues, he's going to be sent to jail. So you'd think he'd learned his lesson, right? Nah, he immediately goes on to break yet another door. And as if the police were waiting for this exact moment, they show up in not less than a minute later. He's able to just barely get away from them, but in the process, he gets a sensation that is oddly nostalgic to him. Later that day, he's at what I guess is his house? Yeah, his life isn't exactly stable. Not only is he homeless, his mom has been hospitalized for as long as he can remember. This is where Noah meets him. He inquires about Zed's weird obsession with breaking doors and gates, to which he responds that he has this strange feeling that if he breaks through some kind of door, he'll be able to go somewhere far away, from this suffocating city to a place where he'll actually have some kind of meaning. Noah can't really understand it, but urges Zed to go to school tomorrow at least to apologize. But Zed? Nah, he's a rebel doing his own thing. He's not one for rules and doesn't like people telling him what to do. Noah understands him too well, as they are childhood friends after all. Seeing as he can't convince his friend, he hands him a medallion. a gift for his birthday which just so happened to be that day. But before Zed can say anything, Noah collapses. Taking him to the hospital, we found out that Noah has some kind of terminal disease that puts immense strain on his body. Just a day of physical activity of an average person is equivalent to years for him, which means that Noah doesn't exactly have long to live. It's tragic, but like Zed, Noah doesn't care about that. He's long since accepted his fate and wants to live life however he sees fit, doing what he wants free of regrets. He wants to be free. Zed can't stand to see his friend like this and leaves, heading to his mother's hospital room instead. His mom is weird. She's unresponsive most of the time. All she ever does is stare at a fish tank, ignoring everything else, especially her son. And it's heartbreaking watching Zed try to reach out to her, reminding her of his birthday, but this doesn't get the slightest bit of response from her until he brings out the gift he got from Noah to show her, which she instantly reacts to. The feathers mean something to her, but for now we don't know exactly what that is. This is also the first time he's seen her do literally anything except for stare at that fish tank. He wants to know if she's been having the same dreams as him, dreams of white feathers. But before he can get some kind of response from her, the school authorities burst in and take him away, locking him in some kind of strange room back in school where he'll stay till they can figure out what to do with him the next day. We then cut to an entirely different place, one with open skies and green grass. The vibe here is notably different from calm, and adding to it, a young girl and an old man are throwing hands. They're actually training. This is Roya and Zico, shardcasters, but we'll get back to them. Zed doesn't spend too long in the storage room before a fire breaks out, and this isn't an accident. Seems like someone is out to get our protagonist. You'd think he's in a tight spot until Noah shows up at the right time to get him out of there. And the moment he's out, he heads back to his mother's hospital. He's made up his mind to leave this town once and for all. This place has no need for him after all. Just as he's about to get into the hospital, he's confronted by school teachers. However, one of them pulls out a laser and kills the other. This teacher seems to want Zed dead for personal reasons. He's gotta take Zed out now because he doesn't want him growing up to be a powerful shardcaster. Zed is confused by this, but before he can do anything, his mom shows up, casting bolts of fire at the teacher, revealing him to have horns on his shoulders. She comments about him being sent from Tusk, but what is Tusk and why are they after Zed? That will be revealed later. His mom and the assassin duke it out and run off, leaving Zed alone to figure out what just happened. But it's in this moment of confusion that the police show up and take him in. Noah, who's been following him earlier, had collapsed and was taken in by an ambulance, but seeing that his best friend is in trouble, he commandeers the ambulance and chases after Zed, leading both cars to crash. This lets Zed escape, not knowing that it was thanks to Noah. Zed feels lost. The day hasn't been going great for him and all he wants to do is find his mom. But then the wind begins to pick up, leading him to a portal that shows up out of nowhere, and from it emerges a human-like entity with wings. Seeing as there's nothing left in this world as staying there would surely get him arrested and jailed for life, he takes a leap of faith into the portal, following the winged entity. And thus he's transported to another world, landing right in the middle of Zico and Roya. This was an amazing first episode. Right from the start you know this isn't going to be your typical toy battler series. The world of Calm was incredibly oppressing and melancholic. You could really feel how suffocating the world was and how much Zed and Noah wanted to get out of it. They are two characters who yearn for freedom to live life however they want, despite the circumstances they've been given. But in a world where everything is seemingly against them, they can't help but feel locked in an eternal struggle. You really get to sympathize with them. When this episode really starts to pick up, you get to feel the tension and confusion both characters are in and worry about how they're going to get out of this unfortunate situation. We only get to see Zed escape to another world, but for now, Noah's fate is left unknown. Spoilers, he gets isekai too, which you find out in the OP right from the first episode. You also get a hint of the direction his character is going to go in. The first episode really serves to get us introduced to our main character duo and their ideals, as while they share the same ideals, they kind of have different ways of carrying it out, which will create friction between the two as the story goes on. The actual plot and story doesn't get all that defined for a while going forward. Hell, halfway through the series run, it just feels like they're going from arc to arc with very little tying them together. The moment Zed lands in this new world, he witnesses a battle between shardcasters and spirits. Getting so overwhelmed, he passes out. He gets a trippy, surreal dream before waking up to Zico and Roya, who introduce themselves, but before they can get more info out of him, he runs off, compelled by the wind. He winds up at the city gate and immediately gets racially profiled, but before he can get into any trouble, Zico steps in to defuse the matter. He's given a brief explanation of his isekai predicament and what shard casters are, as well as handed a weapon and a shard before running off yet again to chase the wind. It doesn't take long until he gets into trouble again, this time fighting off Templar Knights. This could have easily been avoided if he just stopped to calmly explain himself, but nope, he gets into more fights with the law enforcement. Now he's been cornered, but just then a spirit appears. And she kind of bad though. Damn. Oh, right. This is the spirit's Apcarel, and she belongs to Roya, who's out here helping him get away. Just as it looks like they're home free, they're cut off by the strongest shard caster of Templar, the shard champion, Dumas. Zed thinks he can take him for some reason, and he gets humbled. He wakes up in a cell and is kind of angry about it. This all started out of a misunderstanding, which is actually kind of his fault when you think about it, but thanks to Zico, who is apparently a man of high authority here, he's able to drop Zed's charges. So knowing this, you'd think Zed can finally chill, right? Nope, he immediately breaks out with Roya. Like, why? My guy was literally about to be free, and Zico just enabled him to wreak havoc again. Zico being an enabler will become a frequent thing as the story progresses. They make it out of the city and are attacked by some random guy who's been collecting spirits. Things aren't looking too good for them with Zed taking a beating. But just then, his arm begins to react and from it emerges a spirit. The same entity that he's been seeing in his dreams, and the same entity that led him through that portal. This spirit, whose name we'll find out about later, one-shots everything and kills the guy that attacks them. But the power is too strong for Zed to handle, and as such, collapses. The next day, he wakes up to words from Zico. Zico talks like he knows a lot more than he lets on, intentionally keeping some things vague under the guise of letting Zed figure these things out for himself. Zico is a man who talks a lot about fate and destiny and letting them make decisions for themselves, but honestly, it's a lot of BS. He does that thing where he purposefully withholds information from characters because he thinks they aren't ready for it, and it's through these actions that he indirectly creates a lot of problems for characters moving forward. And you'll see how. For now, Zico has placed Zed under the care of Dumas, the man who one-shot him the day prior. On the other side of town, we meet who I can best describe as a millionaire playboy, minus the philanthropy. His name is Robes, and he's taking quite an interest to Zed. Back to Zed, he and Roya meet up with a boy named Mickey. Mickey serves as a student to Dumas, and upon seeing Dumas, Zed lunges forward but is no match for him, who is disappointed in Zed's skills. Frustrated by it all, he storms off, but doesn't go too far before he's blocked off by Robes and his spirit, Belladonna. He doesn't stay for long, only showing up to invite them to his party tonight, wanting to know more about Zed. That night at the party, things seem to be going pretty well until Dumas shows up uninvited. He and Robes seem to have some kind of bad blood between each other. Robes tries to provoke Dumas into a duel, but Dumas doesn't seem to care all that much. He's here for an entirely different reason, having something to do with the farmland he works on, which is actually owned by Robes. Later that night, Zed is just casually roaming the streets when he runs into someone with a Z mark on their forehead. This is the mark of people from a country called Zymo, and they're referred to as Zemotians, and they're hostile towards the country of Templar, all the enemies the characters have fought up until now as Zemotians. Zed gives chase but loses him, coming across a little shed with Mickey of all people. This shed actually belongs to Dumas. This is his flower nursery, but this nursery has a second purpose. Underground, Dumas houses the injured who can't make it to the hospital for some reason or the other, using healing magic to treat them all. However, they're all Zemotians, enemies of the country. Zed doesn't take this well considering all the run-ins he's had with them, but Dumas takes him outside to explain. The country of Zymo is a ruthless place where only the strong survive. Anyone who is defeated in battle is exiled, so with no place left to go, they find themselves here. Dumas has chosen to heal them despite the prejudice. Regardless of good or evil, they're still human. And what's wrong with helping those that need help? This actually made me warm up to Dumas, who has been nothing but stoic since his introduction, coupled with the fact that he spends his free time raising flowers shows he's sort of a gentle giant kind of guy. He presents the moral debate of what it means to help people. Should we only help the good people, What if you heal someone who goes on to cause harm to others? These are rather complex questions the anime asks, and I can't wait to see how it deals with them. Unfortunately, in that very same episode, it is revealed that the Samotians are actually planning to launch an attack on Templar, which Dumas is aware of. He does try to take responsibility and takes one of them down, but the rest have already begun their attack, and as if he knew this would happen, Robes had been lying in wait, ready to take them all down. Thanks to the combined efforts of Dumas and Robes, they are able to clear out all the soldiers. Robes calls Dumas out. These are the people he took care of, but Dumas, like an actual Chad, is ready to take responsibility and receive any punishment the council puts out, but he gets off scot-free. The council is concerned about the frequent Zamotian attacks though, but for now there really isn't anything to do about it. Skipping ahead a little bit, we find out a joust, which is essentially a tournament arc, will be held soon, with the winner being crowned the new Shard champion. All the major characters are interested in entering, like Zed, but unfortunately he can't because he isn't exactly a citizen of Templar, but he's determined to go regardless. Lately, Dumas has been going out at night for some strange reason. Zed's been following him and finds out that he's setting potted plants out as a way to apologize for the chaos his patients had caused. What a really nice guy. He gives Zed some words of motivation which pushes him to enter the joust. What exactly will come from this tournament arc? Only time will tell. So far the story has been kind of just okay. There isn't a lot going on with these first few episodes and they aren't really doing a good job introducing us to the world Zed has found himself in. We aren't really shown or told about the rules and laws that govern this world, which sucks because there are a lot of neat concepts that could be really expanded on, but it's all just surface level stuff. The characters so far haven't been all that engaging, save for someone like Dumas. From the first moment you see them, you understand what their character is all about. Zico is the elderly sage who seems to always know it all, Robes is the flamboyant womanizer who doesn't take a lot of things seriously, Mickey is the timid goofball who'll be excluded from a lot of the events that happen in the story, and Roya is the girl whose personality mostly consists of following the main character around. I won't be speaking on Zed just yet as there is a lot his character does that will be touched on later. But now, it's time for a tournament arc. Actually, a tournament arc is sort of an overstatement. This bit only takes up an episode and a half, with it mostly consisting of montages of all the major characters fighting. The real highlight of the joust is Zed, disguised as Mickey, having his spirits emerge out against his will to wreck his opponent's spirits. The spirit is about to go in and kill his opponents before they are saved by Dumas, who suffers an injury in the process. Zed doesn't exactly care about that and only wants to know his spirit's name, but it doesn't say anything and leaves. Because of Dumas' injury, he'll have to forfeit, but thanks to some roundabout ways, Zed steps in to face his opponent in his place. His opponent is none other than Robes. But before we get to see the fight in full, we are suddenly taken to a different perspective. Noah's. He too has been isekai'd and has found himself in the care of a little girl that's part of a nomadic tribe. He tries to understand how it is he ended up here, and we are treated to a flashback. After he had crashed, a portal had opened up and pulled him in, but unlike Zed's, it looks like he was summoned by some group, but the summoning ritual didn't go well and he was transported somewhere else. Keep in mind this takes place in an entirely different country called Neotopia. It's here that Noah is found by a couple who take him in and look after him. While he still suffers from his terminal illness, healing magic is able to help a lot with keeping it at bay with great effectiveness. The couple are really nice and offer Noah to stay with them, since he reminds them a lot of their son who's off serving the military. He's truly grateful to them for taking him in, and to show his appreciation helps the community out in building a park for the kids in town. The town is really peaceful thanks to the laws of Neotopia. So long as they pay their taxes, they are able to spend their days however they see fit, and the country pretty much provides everything for them. Sounds a bit too good to be true if you ask me. The next day, Noah is out checking out a monument when he's suddenly attacked by a guy who's mighty suspicious of him. Noah avoids every hit thrown at him, noting that his body's senses seem to be heightened, moving exactly the way he visualizes it. He's about to fight back but collapses. He's still chronically ill after all. The whole misunderstanding gets cleared up and we are introduced to Keith and his sister Aisha. They immediately become friends and we get a montage of them having fun. Watching Noah be able to run around and have fun for the first time in his life is really touching. They end the day reminiscing about the good old days. Keith and Aisha were friends with the son of the couple who took Noah in. His name is Gale. They would spend their days full of whimsy until Gale went off to join the military. The children's park is completed the next day and Noah is given a warning to steer clear of Keith. He's apparently a bad apple who refuses to join the military, which is something that is considered almost taboo. You'd think the people are overreacting until you kind of see why. Keith is part of a group who might be up to something, but we won't know what that is just yet. As coincidence would have it, Gale returns on vacation that same day. Everyone is happy to see him, especially his childhood friends, but their meeting isn't all that jolly when Gale ridicules Keith for refusing to join the military and serve his country, calling him trash for spending his days doing nothing with his life apparently. Keith is treated by a bum by his childhood friend and gets rightfully furious about it. Gale is different. There's an air of disconnect around him. He's no longer the childhood friend the two remember and so they leave. They meet up with Noah later and reminisce about the past, but this time things are melancholic. Time has changed them all and they can't go back to the way things used to be. The next day Noah gets arrested and taken into custody for some strange reason. He's taken to a crowd that is gathered at the village square, and the one leading it is none other than Gale. Apparently the couple that took Noah in had committed the great crime of being nice people. They hadn't reported Noah to the authorities upon finding him, and that goes against the laws of the land. So what are the consequences of their actions? A fine maybe? Perhaps some jail time? Nope. Execution. And to make things even worse, the other villagers agree with what is happening. Nobody else seems to stand up for the man, and he himself has already resigned his faith to being executed by his own son. Noah can do nothing but struggle and watch as the man who took him in smiles one last time before he's executed. This was really brutal and low-key kind of hard to swallow. It serves to show you how exactly Neotopia is run. Every citizen must comply to absolute justice or face death. Nobody gets off with a slap on the wrist. The people have given up their individuality, their autonomy, to the absolute law that imposes compliance on them in exchange for safety and peaceful living. The way people like Gale talk about this absolute law of a thing and the country they serve seems almost fanatical. It's like they've been brainwashed and turned into drones, all serving the same cause. Now this is dystopian, and Noah has been caught up in it. Just before Noah is taken away, Keith is able to swoop in and save him. Noah grieves, and Keith is furious. The brainwashed behavior doesn't stop there. The people of the village are all guilty in some way because they built the park without any kind of permission or official request, so they've technically all committed a crime. According to Gale, they basically pillaged public land, and so all of them will be relocated to different places. Bureaucracy, I tell ya. Keith has heard about this and has put together a ragtag group of rebels to fight back, but Noah doesn't want things to escalate and goes to turn himself into Gale. But Gale doesn't change his mind on carrying out the villagers' punishment and knocks him out. It doesn't take long till he is rescued by Aisha though, and they flee. But Gale shows up immediately. Aisha is able to hold him back, trying to plead to her childhood friends she once knew, while Noah escapes. He's able to go far enough but collapses. Some time passes before he wakes up thanks to the sound of fighting and explosions. Keith and Gale are engaged in battle. A cool little detail I noticed in this fight is how their spirits contrast each other. Both their spirits are centaur-like creatures. However, Keith's own is a lot more naturalistic in its appearance, while Gale's is a lot more unnatural looking and kind of manufactured. His is like a standard mass-produced spirit that every Neotopian soldier has. While spirits in general don't have any kind of stylistic connection to their masters, spirits from different countries have different traits and features, which is pretty cool, but it's a shame it doesn't really change much because every spirit, aside from plot related ones, are virtually the same. Keith is overpowered by Gale. Just as he's about to get struck with a killing blow, Aisha stops them and Noah shows up. She pleads with Gale to stop, but he isn't having any of it and kills her right there. Enraged at the sight of his sister's lifeless body, Keith attacks again, and in the heat of the moment, the two stab each other, going down. And Noah has just witnessed all of it. This causes him to snap and let out some kind of explosive power that engulfs the village in flames. Something inside him has changed, and Noah will never be the same. Seeing the destruction he's caused, Aisha opens her eyes one last time, and using the last of her strength, she's able to teleport him somewhere far away. Noah lays in the middle of a forest, mentally devastated. He's just discovered his new power to hurt others and destroy. Power he wants nothing to do with. And that is how he ended up in the care of the nomadic tribe he's currently with. I loved this. We only spent 2 episodes with Noah, but those 2 episodes were really engaging. I had gotten invested in his character and excited to see the direction he would end up in, wondering what would happen when he eventually meets Zed again. It's not an understatement when I say that for most of it, Noah is the best written character in the anime, as the journey he goes through is really compelling, relatable, and oftentimes painful. It's a stark contrast to that of Zed, who's been really unlikable every time he's on screen. This is thanks to the personal stakes Noah has. He's been transported to a new world where he's been able to connect with people and actually live life as a normal teenager. We feel his joy and excitement and are able to relate to him, as opposed to Zed, who's felt really disconnected from the rest of the world and characters. Despite the fact that he's had more screen time, he's done nothing but be selfish and brood about his situation, making him really annoying. I get this is meant to be a character flaw, but for most of the time we've known him, he hasn't really shown he cares about the people who went out of their way to look after him in this new world. Well, if you're like me, you'll probably want to see what happens to Noah next. Well, unfortunately, it'll be a while before we get to see him again, as we are thrown back into the fake tournament arc climax with Zed versus Robes. It's an underwhelming fight. Robes isn't taking him seriously at all and is frankly disappointed. All he wants is for Zed to bring out that powerful spirit of his. Zed doesn't fancy being looked down on though, but all that moxie doesn't do much for him. Robes easily takes him out, landing the title of Shard Champion. This loss has helped Zed do some introspection. He's frustrated at his weakness and wants to become stronger but isn't quite sure how. This frustration kicks off Zed's long character journey to understand himself as he begins to take Dumas' training a lot more seriously. We cut to an entirely new location, an industrial fortress. This is Zymo headquarters, and we're introduced to the top leaders of the land, Gladio, Almeida, and the one at the top bearing a name that strikes fear into all who hear it, the most ruthless leader known to Zymo, Hugh. The Zemosians have just finished their own joust, with the winner getting a chance to challenge one of the big 3 for their rank. Zymo is a ruthless place where strength equals political power. Victory means you get to live another day, and defeat means death. So the winner of this joust, a random soldier who has no face, challenges Gladio and is instantly folded. The Zemosians appear to have some nefarious plans in the works, which we'll be seeing more about it later. We're also introduced to the Tuscans, who wear creepy masks. Whatever their deal is, we aren't sure for now. They mentioned something about a princess from the previous ruling family still being alive before we are cut to a girl who's been imprisoned. Wonder what that's about. Okay, so back in Templar, there's been an ongoing B-plot about a mysterious thief who steals from people in the dead of night. He calls himself No Face, but is actually revealed to be Robes in disguise, with the only person knowing his true identity being Zed. His escapades are becoming a lot more pronounced and the council is on the hunt for him. He claims to do this as a hobby, but might be related to the financial issues his house is facing. His butler has been begging him to put a stop to this, but Robes has one more heist planned. The 2 are able to pull it off, but just as they're about to get away, they run into another No-Face. The plot thickens. Whoever this second No-Face is, they might be up to no good. The next day, Robes has been assigned by the council to capture No-Face and bring him to justice. Robes takes the job up because it's a good opportunity to throw this second No-Face under the bus while uncovering who they really are. On the other side of things, Zed and Roya have been helping Dumas put flowers out. Dumas does this because it's sort of therapeutic for him. The truth is, he carries a mark that has been passed down his bloodline, a mark that brands him as a slave, and he hates it. They get interrupted by Robes, who informs them that No-Face will be attempting to steal Zed's spirit and as such will be guarding him for the time being. Robes is a pain in the ass, especially to Dumas for some reason. Robes has had something out for Dumas since the story began and we're never quite told why. The farmland Dumas used to work on had been reclaimed by Robes, which caused Dumas, Mickey and Zed to move out. So they all have hostilities towards him. And it seems Robes enjoys this as he deliberately pushes all their buttons. Back in Zymo, the bad guys have declared that their plans are almost ready and will be launching an attack on Templar soon. Later that night, Zed is able to slip out from Robes and wander the streets at night. This is a frequent thing for him. Why does he do this? Well, my guess is that he just likes to brood. And just as he's out, No-Face shows up and attacks him. Robes had just about cornered him when No-Face summons a spirit, but we aren't shown who the spirit is, but whatever it is, it's strong enough to one-shot him. No-Face is able to steal Zed's spirit and reveals his face to Robes, planting the mask on him to frame him. Wait, I guess it isn't really framing since in fact he's the true No-Face. Anyway, he's been caught with the evidence and all the stuff he's stolen being found in his mansion. But Robes seems to have figured out what No-Face was actually up to and sends Zed a hint, a flower from his prison cell. But Zed is too dumb to figure out why. As he and Roya ponder it, the flower opens up and lets out a gas that puts Roya to sleep. But she's not the only one who's collapsed, as it seems like the whole town has passed out, except for Zed. These were the same flowers Dumas had been spreading around town all this time. Turns out, Dumas was a bad guy all along, working as a spy for Zymo this whole time. I was genuinely caught off guard by this and actually felt betrayed, and the more I thought about it, the more it really started to suck. Dumas was one of the better written characters in the anime. A low bar, sure, but he actually had other sides to him. Finding out he's just been playing along all this time was kind of painful, and it only got worse from here as his character takes a complete 180 later on in the story. So with the entire town virtually incapacitated, the Zemotians launch their attack. Zed confronts him, to which he summons Zed's own spirit. Dumas' motivation for doing all this is because of the hatred he has for his own blood. He was born into a slave race and he despises it, so this is his attempt at seizing a new life and altering his fate, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to carry that out. He commands the spirit to attack Zed, but I guess Dumas doesn't have enough gym badges to control it because it goes on to wreck the Zemotian soldiers, and even worse for him, it puts him in immense pain. Whatever this spirit is, it appears to have a mind of its own. Back in Zymo, it seems like something of a rebellion is happening. A group of people stormed the Zymo fortress to rescue the captured lady from before, the legitimate princess of Zymo. In order for them to get her to safety, they teleport her out of there and she winds up in Templar, just in time to witness Zed's spirit wreak havoc on the Zemotian soldiers. Oddly enough, she recognizes it and calls it by its name, a mere Gaul. Looks like she's a lot more important than we were led to believe. The assault doesn't go too well for Dumas and he's forced to retreat back to Zymo, but this won't be the last time we hear of him and Zymo, that's for sure. This is where the first arc of the anime ends. As I stated earlier, it doesn't do a lot in selling us the world these characters live in. There really isn't any kind of lore or world building involved. It also doesn't help that it feels very small. We're only ever shown Templar and a few bits of Zymo, but even from what we've seen of Templar, we don't see a lot. The characters cycle through a few of the same locations over and over, so we are rarely ever introduced to new set pieces. It kind of feels like a sitcom, except it's not funny. It's a shame because there's a lot of potential to be had here, but having our characters virtually remain in the same place for 10 episodes doesn't do a lot in terms of story. It also doesn't help that the general vibe of the anime feels slow. Characters talk kind of slow and scenes tend to linger, but I guess it's kind of understandable considering the time it came out. To give praise where it's due, the art is really good, the character designs 8, and the animation gets pretty good sometimes, though it has a few errors here and there. And the music also goes really hard and helps to serve the atmosphere the anime is trying to convey. I wish I could play it for you, but you would just have to take my word for it. Despite how slow things kind of were at the start, it sort of picks up in the next arc, an arc I have really mixed feelings about. So let's hop into it. So, after Dumas' attack, the council have decided that he will not go unpunished and they arrange a team to go after him, a team that will be led by Robes. Zed and Roya, while out and about, run into the collapsed princess and take her back to their place to treat her. Her name is Rebecca, and she's taking an interest in Zed. One thing leads to another and she personally asks Zed for help with the trouble her country is facing, which is a coincidence because Zed had just forced his way into the team that will be going to capture Dumas, so it works well for her. They don't spend much time together before Robes shows up to take her back to the council. She goes on to formally ask for help from the Templar Council, but they turn her down just for the reason that she's Zemotian and don't trust her. Yup, She's being racially profiled and thrown into jail with Zed too on suspicion of harboring her, making this like the 4th time Zed has broken out of confinement. They run into Rebecca's personal guard, Elda, who wants to take her back to Zymo. She offers Zed to come with her, and he does. Now, Zed isn't doing this for some noble reason like helping out. Nah, he's in it for his own gain and wants to get payback on Dumas. So now we enter Zymo proper. In Zymo, they meet with the rebel army and discuss their plans moving forward. With Princess Rebecca back, they want to finally launch an attack on the current ruler of Zymo, Hugh. But Zed isn't interested in all that. Rebecca tries to plead with him, telling him more about his spirit he possesses, a mere gull, and this is the first time he's been told the spirit's name. She tries to persuade him, offering to help find the person he's after, Dumas. But Zed gets angry about this, saying that he has nothing to do with them and storms off. Zed, my guy, you are in a foreign country that you have never been to. Now is not the time to be acting like a brat and going off on your own. And he immediately suffers the consequences of his actions, getting knocked out in the middle of a sandstorm and taken to an underground prison. Back in Templar, Robes and his squad are about to teleport to Zymo. Roya wants to go too, but is stopped by Zico because of how dangerous the place is. But she goes anyway. They appear in Zymo and it seems like the Zemotians are expecting them, immediately launching an attack on them. They are completely surrounded. And this is when you realize that 90% of the squad aren't drawn with fancy or colorful hair and as such are fodder. They get completely overwhelmed and killed, with the only people escaping being Robes and Roya. Go figure. Zed awakens in yet another prison cell. But this isn't your typical prison. In here, people fight to the death with their families on the line. Failure means death for you and your family. Looks like Zed has found himself in a pretty dark and bleak situation. I bet we're going to spend a few episodes in this prison, watching Zed learn about the situation of Zymo and slowly come to understand just how bad these people have it. Maybe this is the moment that will spark change in his character, where he learns to willingly help others and be less selfish. Oh, what's this? He gets rescued by Rebecca in that exact same episode, rendering the whole prison sequence completely pointless and ultimately a waste of time? Wow, what an amazing writing choice. Herein lies the biggest problem I have with the anime as a whole, and the moment you realize it, it makes it hard to not notice it moving forward. Characters sort of just teleport places and are always where they need to be for stuff to happen. Let me explain. Let's say characters are engaged outside the city, right? The next scene they are still engaged, but this time they are inside the city, suddenly just being there now. That's not all, as sometimes you see a situation where characters will hear information about another character and decide to go see them, only to instantly hard cut to that location where the character is, with no time passing at all. This is really disorienting and messes with the perception of space and time in the anime. You aren't sure how far anywhere is and how long it takes to get there, despite showing vast landscapes. It makes the world feel a lot smaller than it actually is, which is made worse by the repeating settings the characters are in. If you still don't understand how bad this actually is, let me give you a different example. Imagine if in Naruto's Sasuke retrieval arc, the moment they are assigned the mission to go and get Sasuke back, they set out from the village and we instantly cut to them running into the bad guys and then cut to Naruto and Sasuke fight, all in the same episode. Jarring, isn't it? It makes me feel like something is missing while making the story feel incredibly fast paced and lacking in actual tension and stakes. Because the moment a character gets into trouble, you can bet another character is going to randomly show up, knowing where exactly they are, and save them. And it doesn't help that the transitions make things even more jarring. They put a fade to black transition in the most awkward of places, and oftentimes it's in the same scene. Who does that? That is not how transitions work. That is not how transitions work! Noticing the transitions always got me incredibly heated. Moving on with the story, after Zed's prison rescue, he finally agrees to help her, not because of the goodness of his heart, but because he feels like he owes her. And just as they are talking, Hugh randomly appears to them. I just complained about this. I just complained about it teleporting. How did he know where they were? Anyway, he takes down Zed and captures Rebecca. Zed is once again frustrated by his weakness. Rebecca's bodyguard, Eldar, sees this and offers to take him to somewhere where he'll get stronger. We're then shown what happened to Rebecca. She has a one-on-one with Hugh. They talk about her father, the previous king, and his death, giving us a flashback on how it happened. Hugh had hypnotized her into killing her own father. His reasons is to acquire the powerful spirit the king had, but he didn't want Hugh to have the last laugh, and with his dying breath, sealed the spirit within Rebecca, commanding it to protect her for him. Heartbroken finding out that she was the one that killed her own father and refusing to let Hugh have his way, she tries to take her own life, but the spirit inside her prevents it, following its order to even protect her from herself. He offers her marriage, an offer that if she does take, will guarantee the safety of all the rebels who support her, and afterward, he releases her to think about the offer. She returns to the rebels who think that she should take up the offer because it will give them a chance to get close enough to Hugh and take him out. Rebecca isn't too fond of this and is torn on what to do about it. Meanwhile, Zed and Elder, on their way to wherever it was that would make Zed stronger, gets into trouble and it looks like Elder might be in grave danger. But don't sweat it, Zed is able to save her. Also meanwhile, Robes and Roya have been captured by the Desmosians and imprisoned where they meet Dumas, who goes off on a villain monologue about his rebirth. Rebecca, feeling lost and alone, returns to Hugh and chooses to take up his offer of marriage. But oh no, she's not going to marry Hugh, the person she secretly had feelings for. Nah, she's going to marry Dumas. Now that is some real psychological torture. Zed and Elder have arrived at the secret location where Zed is supposed to get his new power. She leaves him there and returns to Rebecca's side, so he's left to fend for himself. His trial has him up against a giant lizard, while some weird wizard in a tree goes off about power and how those who seek power get consumed by it. Looking back at this scene, it feels incredibly random and only really serves to give us more action. The wizard is all about sowing seeds of doubt in Zed, calling his desires evil. But man, Zed just tells him to shut up and prove his resolve, declaring his desires will take him somewhere, and this nets him a shiny new sword that is functionally the same as any other sword and a new spirit. This is Rambles, a fire-breathing martial artist Birdman. Hey, wait a minute, I feel like I've seen this before. Oh, that's where. Anyway, you know how Elder went back to meet Rebecca, who was captured twice while she was away, meaning that there was no actual way for her to know the princess was in trouble, let alone know where she was? Well, she finds her pretty easily and rescues Robes and Roya while at it. Gee, talk about convenient. They're able to get out with very little resistance, though Robes stays behind with the intention of settling his score with Dumas. We cut back to Noah, who seems to be doing fine now. The little girl that had been taking care of him all this time has taken a liking to him. Her name is Sagiri. She'll be important. Noah seems to have found peace with her and the nomadic tribe. She reminds him a lot of Zed. While she's out chasing a paper plane, she does run into Zed. This is one of those almost meeting situations that drive me crazy. It's insane to think that if Zed had just taken a few steps more, he would have seen Noah, thus changing the entire course of the story, but the writers have other plans. Also, it's wild to think that these nomads are just passing by Zymo during what is essentially a civil war. Zed is able to meet up with Rebecca, Elder and Roya, and they plan their next move. But that doesn't matter because they get attacked by Almeida and Rebecca is captured again. I swear I've lost count of how many times she's been captured in the span of 4 episodes. Okay, we are reaching the climax of the arc now. Dumas and Robes are engaged in an official duel in Zymo's arena. It's what Robes has been waiting for all this time. Meanwhile, Rebecca is back with Hugh and he reveals to her that her father has been alive all this time. Hugh has been preserving the body, and this was all part of his plan. He wants the king to lift the spirit seal on Rebecca and gain the spirits for himself. And you know what? Her father is actually in support of what Hugh is doing and tells Rebecca to marry him. In fact, he marries them right there, giving Hugh legitimate access to the spirit. So to nobody's surprise, the moment he gets the spirit, he instantly kills the king. Elder hears the commotion, tries to step in, but he kills her too. Back to the Dumas fight. Robes isn't doing too good against him and it looks like he might actually lose. But then in comes Zed just in the nick of time to face Dumas and effortlessly takes him down, proving his strength and how much he has surpassed his teacher. Their fight gets interrupted when Gladio third parties them, sending Dumas into the Shadow Realm and going after Zed next. But this fight isn't a long one. Zed styles on him, easily taking out this Desmosian general who was believed to be one of the strongest. The power scaling in this anime can be pretty whack, but regardless, it was satisfying. With the fight over, they rush back to Rebecca, but she's nowhere to be seen. The only person meeting them is Elder, who is just about to draw her last breath. The arc ends with Rebecca walking off into the night, hating herself, longing for death, and wishing to be reborn. Her mind is broken. Wow, if it's one thing the anime does a lot is having arcs end on somber tones. The characters never leave an arc feeling good or triumphant, and while they may have won something, the overall situation is often left worse than when they got there, making you wonder just where the story is going. People die, like a lot, and the antagonists are usually the only ones who come out on top, pushing them further to their goals. KIBA aims to show you just how ruthless conflict is. It doesn't glorify fighting as a cool thing the main character does to solve a problem. In fact, most of the times, fighting is the problem and creates more problems, with the characters only fighting because their hands have been forced to. But then again, they never try any other means to solve a problem, except for throwing hands. The series is heavy on action and they need a reason to have characters fight after all, as shallow as it may be. This arc sort of acts as an intermission to the next arc, with the story slowing down for a bit to let the characters catch their breath as well as set up the next arc. Since returning from Zymo and hearing news of Dumas' death, Mickey has been pretty bummed out about it. Dumas was his teacher after all. Coupled with the fact that he feels that he could have stopped Dumas from betraying Templar, Mickey can't help but feel frustrated about his weakness. I'ma be real with you. His story is the weaker part of the mini arc and doesn't really affect the grander story. The true highlight comes from other things happening. First, we take a look at Hugh, who's showing off the new spirit he's acquired. It's called Pronimo. He and Almeida are planning to launch an attack on a place called Kalbu. This is all part of Hugh's grand plan, which is to conquer and unite all the nations to become something called the Great Tusker. How ominous. The next big thing to happen is Noah. The nomad group he's been with for a while now will unfortunately have to part ways with him because he can't follow them on their pilgrimage moving forward. He understands and is grateful for everything they've done for him up until this point. It's kind of sad he'll have to part ways with Sagiri though, because they've gotten really close and she sees him as a brother. He's decided to part from them the next day, which is Sagiri's birthday. But lately, things haven't been right with him. Every now and then he gets a really bad headache and can hear a voice calling to him, but he doesn't understand what this voice is saying. It's driving him crazy. Caster marks have also appeared on him and those two seem to be reacting to something. The very next day, he celebrates Sagiri's birthday with her but doesn't have the heart to tell her goodbye and plans on leaving without her knowing. Just as he picks up his things to leave, a mysterious box lights up and it's revealed to be the source of Noah's recent headaches. The box bursts into a beam of light and from it emerges a spirit shard that forces itself into Noah. The nomads arrive to investigate what just happened but are unfortunately caught in an explosion as the spirit reveals its form to Noah. The spirit Satura has chosen Noah to be its master. Noah stands up, mortified at the destruction he's unknowingly caused yet again. His spirit is shattered. Even worse, he finds the unconscious body of Sagiri. Worried for her life, he cries for help, hoping someone, anyone is able to come to their aid. And just then, a portal opens up. A woman stands above him. This has been the person she has been searching for all this time, and in an instant, teleports them away. Meanwhile, back in Templar, Zed and Roya are just about done dealing with whatever it was Mickey was going through. He was possessed by Dumas' spirit. It wasn't that big of a deal. On their way home, they are approached by a mysterious figure. He reveals himself to be Zed's former prison mate, all the way back in the Zymo arc when he was captured and taken to that underground prison. He has come to request the aid of Zed on behalf of Rebecca. Surprise, surprise, she's actually alive. The crew are skeptical about this guy who just randomly showed up requesting for help, and Zed actually uses his sense for once. How can he expect to trust a guy whose only source is, "Dude, trust me"? But his response to that is saying that Princess Rebecca said he owes her a favor and he instantly changes his mind. However, Zico steps in to stop Zed. He claims of the dangers involved as well as the political reasons surrounding the country of Kalbu and Princess Rebecca are far too sensitive to be involved in and forbids them to go. So anyway, they sneak out later that night and go regardless. Upon arriving at Kalbu, they meet Rebecca once again, but she's different now. The meek girl who couldn't fend for herself is no more. Before them stands a woman fueled by nothing but rage, becoming a rather ruthless person, ready to fight at a moment's notice. She's been with the Kalbu, helping them fight off the Zemosians who've been periodically oppressing and attacking them, acting as sort of a defender. The Zemotians was to take control of the village for reasons only known to Hugh, and they actually tried to take I guess you could say a rather diplomatic approach to things, offering them safety if they just signed themselves over to the Zemotians. But Rebecca is strongly against this. She and a select few of the locals want to fight for their land. However, the leader of the village doesn't want that. He wants to resolve this with as little conflict as possible, but everyone else makes it seem like he's a fool for wanting to do that. We're going to later find out that he was right all along. This arc has very little to do with Zed and Roya. They don't have any personal stakes in it and are just here for the ride and used as a vehicle to dump a bit of exposition on us. What I found really interesting is that in this world, people aren't born through normal means. They actually come from eggs, which has some rather confusing implications. Rebecca has been able to rally up more people to fight for her cause, but there's one big problem. The people of Kalbu have lived underground all their lives with minimal interactions with other factions, so they are severely lacking in combat experience, and despite knowing this, Rebecca still wants to put their lives on the line to fight Zymo. And we see the consequences of that. When Zymo attack again, many lives were lost. Rebecca faces Almeida again, able to push her back and force the soldiers to retreat, but even after that, the damage has already been done. But Rebecca is unable to see the consequences of her actions caused and blames Zed for his lack of using Amir Gul to fight back. She doesn't take any accountability for her actions. Back in Zymo, Hugh isn't too pleased with the outcome and decides that he'll be leading the next attack on Kalbu. Just then, two people show up. They are representatives of Tusk and they wish to accompany Hugh on his conquest just to see what he's capable of. In the village, the people gather once again to discuss what to do, considering fighting back didn't work out the first time. But some of them still want to continue fighting. They've been backed into a corner and there really isn't any other way for them to handle things. One of them, the guy from before who brought Zed and Roya here, his name is Guzma, goes off on a whole protagonist speech about how he's going to fight for the children and for the future and the love of his life and whatnot, and he's really trying to sell that main character energy, but it's that kind of mindset that will bring them even more losses. All this fighting has had Zed lost in thought. He wonders if this is really the right thing to do. And it's funny coming from him considering he was always the guy who was ready to throw hands. He wonders if fighting is really enough to get things done and is conflicted on which side to take, those that want to fight and those that want to run away and survive. This marks the start of Zed's change in character. We cut to the city of Neotopia. Noah and Tagiri have been here recovering all this time. He's kept the truth of what happened that night from her in order to protect her smile. He's then approached by the woman who found him. She, and by extent Neotopia, want Noah to use his power to fight for them, but he's against it. He's afraid of using his power because it only brings destruction. Plus, he's not exactly on board with Neotopia's justice system. That same night, their hospital is attacked by resistance fighters, so Noah and some of the medical staff try to flee, but then they get cornered. Suddenly, Noah's spirit starts to react, but the PTSD he has forces him to hold it back. This leads to the medical staff getting killed, and just as they're about to take him out, help comes in to save him. In a very shocking twist of things, this was all staged by this woman, Diana. She gaslights this boy into thinking that the reason for all the destruction he's caused was because of his weak heart, and she promises to make his heart and mind strong through absolute law. This marks the start of Noah's change in character. Returning to Kalbu, the Zemotians have begun their third and final attack on the village. Chaos ensues and everyone is fighting. In the midst of it all, some soldiers are able to make it to the nursery, and they break a lot of the eggs in there, killing children. For me, this was the darkest part in the show, and it gets even more uncomfortable. The sight of the dead children causes a few of the villagers to snap and scream in perfect union. These screams summon the villagers' god, their guardian spirit who has come to wreak havoc on the attacking Zemotians. But for some reason, the emergence of this monster pleases Hugh. He sends out Pronimo to face the spirit, and the two fight, but it looks like the monster spirit is too strong for it. And to make things even more messed up, the spirit eats Pronimo. But this is all according to Hugh's plan. The monster spirit begins to break apart and morph, transforming into an entirely new being. This is Pronimo's true form. And, now she's kinda bad though. The monster spirit and Hugh's spirit were actually two halves of one whole, and now they have become the key spirit, Pronimo. Key spirits are sort of like the legendary Pokemon of this world, and there are 6 in total. For now, we only know of Zed's Amir Gul, Hugh's Pronimo, and Sachra, the spirit residing in Noah, and Hugh plans to catch them all. Since he's gotten what he came for, he leaves, but Rebecca gives chase but is intercepted by Almeida. She's just about cornered until the village chief steps in to protect her. He wants a moment to talk to her, but man, this bitch says she doesn't have time for this and tries to get back into battle, but he stops her trying to reminisce about the past but is sniped by Almeida. Meanwhile, Zed has caught up to Hugh and they are just about to throw down until both their spirits summon themselves and begin to react to each other. Hugh is surprised by the appearance of Amir Gul and the fact that it's with Zed of all people. The Tuscans from before have been watching this whole time, only for Roya to show up and have one of them begin to react strangely, muttering her name. I wonder what that's about. Almeida and Rebecca are still fighting it out until she grabs a hostage. In an attempt to save her, Rebecca is stabbed. The Zemosian forces have just about had enough and leave. With the fighting finally over, the two return to Rebecca, the light slowly fading from her eyes. In her final moments, she has found peace. Peace that she was able to finally find herself after all these years of being a figurehead for one faction or the other. She thanks Zed and Roya for their help, and with that, she passes away, closing the arc. I will admit, this was low-key one of my favorite arcs in the anime. It expands a lot more on what I had said earlier about not glorifying conflict, mostly through Rebecca. Blinded by rage and the quest for revenge, she went on to do nothing but wake up every day choosing violence. While it's understandable she's the way she is now because of all the suffering she's been through, it doesn't justify the horrible things she's done, cause it's thanks to her actions that countless innocent lives were lost. At some point, she even admits that the villagers were nothing but tools for her to enact her revenge on Hugh. She's the real villain of this arc when you really think about it, and she pays the ultimate price for her actions, though it feels like she got off lightly. You could argue that even if they had chosen a more diplomatic route with the Zemosians, it would have ended in violence either way, but I doubt it would have led to the death of unborn children. This arc really helps Zed put things in perspective. This is the first time he's actually dealt with death, and it makes him wonder if having so much power is even worth it. Watching him slowly understand that fighting is pretty bad shows growth in his character, and from this point on, we see him become a lot less aggressive. Which is good. Our boy is developing. This arc opens up with a character I didn't expect to be seeing again. It's Keith. He actually survived that, and looks like he's on the run from the Neotopian military. He's able to just barely get away with teleport magic, and he's wound up in Templar. Seeing as he's a wanted criminal, Neotopia wants him back and requests Templar to return him. The Elders try to get Robust to do it, but he refuses, so the responsibility is put on to Zed, who takes the job. It's a fairly easy task after all. But just as they're about to teleport, Keith tries to resist and Rhea jumps in to stop him and so ends up teleporting with them. In Neotopia, we see what Noah has been up to. He seems to be much better, but there's something different about him. He talks about the country and its rules in an almost brainwashed fashion. I don't know what it is they did to him, but he's conformed to Neotopia now and is almost like some kind of drone worker. He's been given the assignment to go retrieve the escaped convict. Unknown to him that it's Keith, and he graciously accepts the assignment, all in the name of absolute law. Zed's group has found themselves in a strange place. Thanks to the interference of Zymo, their teleportation was interrupted, causing them to appear in the land of Tusk. Tusk is an even more ruthless place than Zymo. It's survival of the fittest here, with the two races of Tuscans constantly fighting each other. The first race are humans who have horns growing out of their shoulders, while the other race are referred to as beastmen, born with shards in their bodies, letting them cast shard spells directly from their bodies. Both races worship the great Tusker, the god who is said to have created all their lands, and they dedicate themselves to collecting spirit shards in an attempt to revive Tusker. Zed remembers that the guy that attacked him all the way in episode 1 actually had horns on his shoulders and was sent by Tusk. But that's it, we never find out why, and it never looks like the Tuskans recognize Zed. They are attacked by a bunch of beastmen, and during the scuffle they capture Roya while Zed is knocked off a cliff. He survives though. Meanwhile, Hugh has arrived in Tusk and meets with the Tuscan officials, who are the ones actually ordering him around to gather all the key spirits. They have some really racist conversations about the beastmen and their culture. Noah has also arrived at Tusk for his mission. he'll finally be able to encounter Zed for the first time since being isekai. Keith and Zed's next course of action is to rescue Roya, who is about to be sacrificed. Roya did try to make a run for it but was stopped and knocked out by that Tuscan woman from before. This causes her to have flashbacks of her mother. All this time, Roya had been dealing with her identity and wondering where her parents were, only holding on to this memory she's had of her mother. Damn, I bet it's going to be hard for the two of them to storm the Beastman castle and find Roya since they've never been there before and have no idea where exactly she's being held, right? Oh, actually no, they rescue her immediately. Zed summons a mere Gull and gets jumped by Hugh. He's getting overwhelmed until Satura appears. The three key spirits begin to resonate with each other, causing tremors. This sends the Beastmen into panic, and in the midst of the chaos, Noah and Zed are reunited. Getting out of there, they are finally able to exchange a few words. However, there's no time for this as Noah's top priority is completing his mission, so he's kind of distant towards Zed. Roya and Keith arrive as well, and Keith isn't too happy to see Noah. Noah is able to teleport them out of there and remains with Keith. The two exchange very few words. Keith is kind of disappointed in what Noah has become, but he doesn't care. Noah kills him right there, ending the life of his former friend. This was crazy unexpected. Noah, who had grieved over the destruction he's caused in the past, was suddenly taking the life of someone he had previously considered a friend. His character had taken a complete 180 and has me wondering what exactly they did to him to turn him this way. This is Noah, who wanted to live the little life he had left however he wanted, free to make whatever decisions and stick by them. The same guy has suddenly submitted to some kind of conformist power that decides what to do for him, throwing away his individuality and turning him into a mindless worker that kills when told. This is really messed up. So yeah, we are left with one more plot reveal at the end of the episode. Roya has a horn growing out of her shoulder. Dun dun dun! You can probably see where this is going, and it leads into my least favorite arc of the anime. With the discovery of her horns, Roya has begun to feel kind of lost. For as long as she can remember, she's always been with Zico and has very little memories of her parents. She now faces an identity crisis, and she confronts Zico about it, asking about her parents and if she really is from Templar. And Zico straight up lies to her face. There is literally no point in doing all this. It's a problem Zico has throughout the series. He's always lying or just withholding info. This whole arc would have been a lot shorter if he had just told her the truth right there. Obviously, she doesn't take being lied to all that well, and she storms off. She finds Zed and tries to confide in him, but he's way too preoccupied with other stuff and brushes her aside, which really hurts. Feeling like she doesn't belong anywhere and wanting to find more about her past, she sneaks off into the teleport room and heads to Tusk. And the moment she gets there, she is immediately swarmed by beastmen. It's more than she can handle, and just as she's about to get captured, a mysterious man swoops in to save the day. On the other side of Tusk, Despara, the woman who seems to remember Roya, meets with a Tuscan official. She mentions something about the cursed child returning, which has him visibly distraught, worried about a prophecy coming true, a prophecy that said that his daughter would bring him his downfall. The mystery man introduces himself as Ginga and tries to raise Roya up, but fails. She's not in the mood to deal with his nonsense and leaves, which is when she encounters Despara, who tries to kill her but is saved by Ginga yet again. Just then, another Tuscan, Norman, shows up and offers them refuge in his mansion. He's aware of who Roya really is and offers to adopt her. His sneaky plan is to use her as a bargaining chip in an attempt to seize more political power. Zed arrives at Tusk and is able to find her thanks to the help of a Tuscan spy who actually works for Templar. He's a man who follows Despara around, and his name is Cloud. Zed apologizes to Roya for not being there for her when she needed someone to talk to and is ready to listen to her. He doesn't try to force her back to Templar and tells her to take her time. Norman takes Roya to a banquet to reveal her and flex on her father, which feeds into his paranoia and runs away. Later on, Cloud tells Roya about her mother waiting for her and he takes her to her. She's overjoyed at the sight of her mother, and as she moves in to embrace her, her mother collapses, suddenly transforming into Despara. I'm sure you're wondering why this is the case. Okay, so 10 years ago while Roya was still with her parents, her father received a prophecy telling him that Roya, his daughter, is an accursed child that would lead to his downfall. At first he didn't believe it until paranoia got a hold of him, making him order Despera to assassinate his wife and daughter. Despera is actually able to kill her mother, but not Roya, who is saved by accidentally falling off a cliff. Believing that her daughter is still alive, in her final moments, she uses a shard to extract her soul and put it into Despera, fusing the two. So now they share the same body, occasionally swapping control, waiting for the day she gets to see her daughter again. Also, she's been cozying up to Cloud this entire time. They were able to briefly get away but encounter Despera again. In the middle of the fight, Roya's father appears and takes her hostage, threatening to kill her right there, but Despera jumps in to shield her, taking a knife to the back. Her father tries to make a run for it but gets taken out by Cloud. Roya weeps over her mother's body, her mother glad that she was able to finally protect her. It's a touching scene. Though it looks like her mother has returned to her, she doesn't have much time left. Roya wants her to come with them back to Templar, but she refuses because there would be no point. She says her final goodbyes to her daughter and spends her final moments with her lover, ending this arc. This arc serves to give Roya some kind of character development and doesn't really affect the grander story as a whole. It only really sets up a change in Roya moving forward, but even then, as the story goes on, she slowly becomes less and less important, mostly just tagging along and oftentimes being the damsel in distress for Zed to worry about. I welcome the growth in her character, but this arc as a whole felt like a big slog. It sort of does the same thing with Rebecca in the Zymo arc and how she kept getting captured and needed to be rescued over and over again, this time Roya being the one needing rescuing. It tries to take things in a political direction, focusing on the internal politics of Tusk, but frankly, who cares? In the grander scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Even more so when we find out that the Tuscan politicians aren't even the real people ruling the land, so in the end, it's all just pointless. But thankfully, things pick up in the next arc. Tournament arcs in this kind of anime are always some of the best. Nothing beats having pure unadulterated action to help introduce new characters and developments, but unfortunately KIBA doesn't exactly deliver in the tournament aspect, but does give some great moments. This arc will be taking place in Neotopia. The country we've only seen little through Noah, but even from the little we've seen, we know that this country isn't exactly a perfect place as it claims to be. In fact, one could argue that this is the worst of them all. An international joust will be held in Neotopia, with all the countries bringing their best fighters to represent them. Yes, even Zymo. It's crazy that despite all the war crimes Zymo has committed, they are still accepted into a civil competition like this. Surely this decision won't have any horrible consequences, right? We're shown all the other nations picking their participants for the joust, and this is the first time we're introduced to the country of Ulvarks, a technologically advanced society with humans who have become cybernetically enhanced. This is also where Genga is from. Back in good old Templar, we see what our main characters have been up to. Roya, after all that has happened in Tusk, has started to think about what she really wants to do and the person she really wants to be moving forward. Like Zed, she's someone who's been pursuing strength all this time, but now she's not sure if that's what she wants or if being strong will actually help anyone because of this. She also has no desire to join the joust, however Zico is able to convince her to go, telling her she might find her answer there. And she agrees. The team for Templar will be Zed, Robes, and Roya. In Neotopia, we're shown even more of Noah's new personality. He kills people in the name of the country without question or remorse, and we see how his relationship with Sagiri has changed. She tries to gift him a good luck charm for the joust, but he brushes her well intentions aside, saying it's illegal and also pointless to put stuff like that on his person because he's protected by absolute law. It's a huge contrast from episode 1 Noah, who presented Zed with a similar gift for its symbolism, showing us just how much he has thrown away sentimentality. This hurts Sagiri's feelings. Noah and Zed are finally able to meet up again and briefly catch up. It's nice that after all this time apart, they are still able to talk to each other like nothing has changed between them. They want to tell each other everything they've experienced, but they know that's not possible because of the way things are right now. They both have to focus on the upcoming joust, but even then, Zed can tell that there's something different about Noah. Meanwhile, Roya is out brooding somewhere where she meets Sagiri, and the two get along really well. Sagiri instantly warms up to her and hands her the good luck charm instead. She's really sad Noah didn't take it, but is happy that Roya accepts it without hesitation, marking the start of their friendship. After this, we get more look into the cult-like behaviors of Neotopia. Their king is like a high-key fanatic and is obsessed with Noah. Not in that way. Noah was summoned to Neotopia and is regarded as its savior, and the king takes this fact very seriously, putting him up on a pedestal. But we aren't quite sure what it means to be a savior and what exactly is he going to save them from. These are questions that will linger on for a long time and shape Noah's mindset. It's finally time for the joust, and let me give you guys a heads up. If the fight doesn't include two main characters, it ends up being something of a montage that ends in like 30 seconds. The first fight is Zed versus a character from Olvarks. It goes well enough for him until he gets overwhelmed, but just as it looks like he might go down, he summons a mere Gaul, the instant win button. And this feels kind of unfair. A mere Gaul and all the other key spirits are stupidly overpowered. They're like uber tiered spirits brought into a UU tournament. Hence, the moment they come out, they effortlessly take down whatever opponent they face. It takes a lot of tension from the fights and makes things pretty predictable, which means the only thing to really look forward to is the eventual fight between Noah and Zed, which Noah can't wait to have because he wants to prove himself to Zed so bad. He's always been chasing after Zed, having something of an inferiority complex, and now he thinks he's finally strong enough to catch up to Zed and even surpass him. The thing to note here is that he doesn't say this in a friendly rival kind of way. He means to beat Zed to the ground, and Zed isn't exactly eager to face him, cause Noah is his friend after all. After this, Noah meets Sagiri and Roya and notes the charm on her, but he doesn't feel anything towards this. In fact, he thanks Roya for taking the charm because he doesn't believe in her silly little whimsical fantasies. At this point, if you dislike him, I wouldn't blame you. The next fight is Noah versus a Tusk NPC. He summons Satura and wins, easy peasy. Next is Roya versus a Neotopian knight by the name of Kira. She was introduced this arc and works with Noah. She's also a tsundere towards him. The fight goes in her favor because Roya's head isn't exactly in the game. All this time, Roya has been dealing with her own internal struggles with strength, and she feels left behind since someone like Zed has gotten stronger and she's virtually been in the same place. But just as she's about to lose, something snaps in her. She becomes a lot more ruthless and completely turns the tables. Not satisfied by her victory, she intends to finish Kira off but collapses. She does come out as the victor though, and this new side of her never comes up again in the anime. She's rushed into the hospital where Zed and Sagiri are worried about her, but then at the same time Noah shows up to take Zed to the king, who wants to offer him a spot at Neotopia if he leaves Templar, an offer that shocks him. Even Noah is on board with it. He wants Zed to join in the fight to keep absolute law. But Zed isn't on board with this. He just doesn't vibe with absolute law. No one knows this. Zed has always been someone who goes against authoritative power and makes a solid argument against him. Zed's several acts of rebellion has done nothing but bring him trouble throughout his life, leaving him with nothing but misery. So how can he be happy? Noah is trying to push absolute law and how amazing it is to Zed, but he just can't understand it. Just as they begin to argue, Sagiri comes in telling them something has happened to Roya. She's gone into a coma, however her life isn't in any urgent danger. In her coma, she sees the spirit of her mother who embraces her. The warm light of her mother unlocks something in her. She now has the ability to heal people, something she's never done before, and this is some extra potent healing. She has realized that her quest for strength isn't something she really wanted. Encountering her mother once again has helped her understand that what she really wants is to use her power to help and support others, and with this brand new healing magic, she can finally do just that. This marks the close to her character arc. It's a happy ending, or so we'd like to think. Knights storm the room and arrest her. Apparently, unauthorized healing is against absolute law and is a serious offense, with offenders getting the death sentence. So they take her away. See how messed up Neotopia is if doing a minor act of kindness results in your immediate arrest and execution? Zed tries to intervene but Noah cuts in. He's furious and looks more than ready to stop Zed dead in his tracks if he tries anything funny. His number one task is upholding the law after all. Seeing his friend like this makes Zed more than certain he'll never join Neotopia. The two fight for a bit before deciding that they'll continue their fight at the joust. Oh yeah, the joust has been going on all this time with NPCs fighting each other with nothing of note happening. The final match of the day is Robes, who I forgot existed, against this creepy dude from Zymo called Nudu. Robes, while dealing with a stomach ache, is still able to easily take him down. And so ends the first day of the tournament. The next day opens up with Noah versus Zed. Right from the get-go, Noah goes all out against Zed, but Zed's heart isn't in the fight at all and is holding back. He doesn't want to fight his childhood friend, someone he's basically known his whole life. someone he knows is pushing his body more than he should. He's getting pummeled and Noah is getting furious. He knows Zed is holding back against him, and it's here that he admits deep down he's always hated Zed and felt like Zed was only ever friends with him because he felt sorry for him. But now he plans to show how superior he is. Hearing this breaks Zed's heart. Summoning Satura, he intends to overwhelm Zed, who retaliates with Blaziken. Even though it doesn't stand a chance, it's still able to put up a good fight against Satura, but is ultimately taken down. Noah informs Zed about Roya's execution, which enrages him, letting him finally summon Amir Gul. The fight gets intense. The two key spirits clash, evenly matched in power. It's a back and forth before Zed is finally able to knock Noah down. He goes in for the final blow, but memories of their childhood flows in, stopping him just before the blade connects. But this moment of hesitation gives Noah the opportunity to strike back, knocking Zed out, meaning Noah is the winner of their match. Zed lays unconscious in the infirmary. A mysterious masked man from Tusk comes in to steal Amir Gul. What is his goal? We can only wonder. While this is going on, Roya has been taken to an execution chamber to wait for her sentence to be carried out, and the next fight is Almeida versus a Beastman. The Beastman hits her so hard she stops moving. Uh-oh, it looks like she's finally croaked. The king goes down there personally as part of their customs to pray for her, but double uh-oh, she's actually still alive and tries to assassinate the king, but Noah is able to quickly swoop in and save him. Seeing as she's cornered, she makes a run for it and teleports out of Neotopia with the help of the mystery man. So anyway, it's time for the final fight of the tournament. Noah versus the mystery Tusker. And it's revealed to be actually Hugh. Oh gosh darn it, who could have ever seen this coming? Their spirits clash until Hugh summons Amir Gul too. Noah ends up being no match for him and is almost beat, but just as Hugh is about to finish him off, his body starts to negatively react to Amir Gul. Amir Gul is rejecting him. It's a side effect of what happens when someone who isn't chosen by a key spirit tries to use it. We saw this happen previously with Dumas. Just as it looks like Hugh has finally been thwarted, he's able to escape, which means that Noah is declared the winner of the joust. While this is all going on, Sagiri was able to wake up Zed and get him to save Roya. So, I guess it's going to be pretty hard for Zed to find where Roya is being kept, huh? Nah, he finds her almost immediately. Wait, I feel like I'm repeating myself. With the help of Ginga, they're able to escape out of the city, effortlessly too. You'd think they'd have some kind of trouble with the way how Neotopia is swarming with guards. The only person that does come after them is Noah. Noah has very little words for them. Surprisingly, he's only there to return Amir Gul and leaves, informing them that a squad will be coming after them soon. You'd think he still has a soft spot for his friend, but it doesn't feel that way. It's more like he's disappointed and doesn't feel the need to try and stop Zed. He doesn't rate Zed anymore and so he leaves. This arc ends with the reveal of what Hugh looks like under his mask, and let me just say, I'm kinda digging the look. Those stupid glasses he had on never really did fit him. I guess he was really trying to commit to the whole cool and mysterious type, but now he's going to be unhinged. This arc was pretty fun. It didn't have a lot of twists and was mostly focused on the characters of Zed, Noah and Roya. For Zed especially, this is when you really see how much calmer he's gotten. He doesn't flare up at people or tell them to shut up like before, and most of all, he's not as selfish as he was when the series started. He's become a really chill dude and is actually a likable guy now. He's a lot more fun to watch when he isn't raising his voice at literally everything, and because we get to experience the new developments he's gone through, it makes watching him fight his best friend all the more painful, especially when said friend tells him he's always hated him, which really sucks. Noah on the other hand, while his character has begun to regress and you start to hate him bit by bit, you can't just help but feel sorry for him. You know that if he keeps going the way he's going, it'll eventually lead to severe consequences, but regardless of how much of an asshole he's become, he's still my favorite character in the show. Anyway, things are really starting to heat up around the world. Tensions are rising between all the nations, which will greatly affect political interactions moving forward. After their escape from Neotopia, Zed and Roya have pretty much been branded as criminals and Neotopia wants them back to Fate's execution. The Templar Council are seriously considering handing them over to Neotopia in order to preserve the alliance they have. There are no exceptions to absolute law after all. However, Zico steps in and chooses to go speak with the king himself on behalf of the two. Apparently they go way back and the king kind of owes Zico a favor. While this is going on, we cut to Neotopia and turns out Noah too is in trouble for letting them go. disobeying the absolute law he holds in high regard. The king isn't too pleased with this. Looks like it's the death sentence for him. Really, it be your own people. Like Noah has done nothing but uphold the law since he got there, devoting his life to it, even saving the king's life from Almeida. But the king is like, oh, you have feelings? People shouldn't have feelings, that just gets in the way of absolute law. I guess all that talk about him being the savior was just to gas him up. And Noah, he's cool with it. Their conversation is interrupted by Zico, who has come to talk. From their conversation we learn something that's actually pretty damning. The king's ideology is, in this war-torn era, what they really need is power. Enough power to force people to be peaceful, which is exactly what is going on in Utopia, and which is exactly what he wants to extend to all the other nations through absolute law. But here's the really shocking thing. He made absolute law up. It's a complete farce. All this time we've been made to believe that the absolute law that governs the land is something brought forth by a higher power. In fact, the king has made people believe that this was due to a key spirit, hence why the law is so rigid. There are no exceptions to absolute law, he says. But this key spirit never even existed. I guess he was just really good at brainwashing. He asks Zico if he still believes power is the solution, and Zico can't agree with him. The old man has some regrets about the past. Apparently something really bad happened that changed his views on power and his quest for power. Arrive at a statue that is still under construction. This is meant to be the symbol of absolute law, the stupa of truth. But this is just another cover-up because deep underground, people are mining trying to uncover the actual key spirit that is said to be around there. Over in Tusk, we see the real leaders and true antagonists, a bunch of masked individuals, and for some reason, one of them looks like Team Rocket's Jesse, and I can't unsee that. They make nefarious plans all the while chess is being played in the background, so you know they are doing some intense, devious, diabolical planning. But really, all they talk about is stuff we know they are already up to. They want to gather all the key spirits because whoever does becomes the one true savior. This bit of information brings a lot of interesting implications. With Noah being dubbed as the savior, perhaps this is his identity. Hell, maybe it's Zed's. We know that not just anyone can wield key spirits, they choose who they want to be their masters. So maybe the savior is one who all the key spirits choose. Still, this proves that the story is really starting to ramp up. So the king agrees to reconsider Zed and Roya's punishment, but just then they get attacked. Fighters from Uvarks are here to take the king's head. It's a 1v4 and Noah has a tough time, but thanks to the power of plot, he fends them off and they run away. Seeing that Noah has saved his life twice now, the king decides to revoke his execution. Fake ass son of a bitch. Later that night, Noah is hanging around the statue reminiscing about the past, only to encounter a mysterious person. And who is it? It's Zed's mother. What? What is she doing here? And more importantly, what is she after? Speaking of Zed, he's back to brooding around because of all the stuff that happened at the joust, and this culminates in him passing out. And when he wakes up, he feels odd. He can't feel Amir Gall anymore. It's not like it's been stolen for like the 4th time. Nah, it's still there, but for some reason, it isn't responding. Meanwhile in Utopia, they appear to be preparing for a festival to celebrate the king's 10th year of ruling. So he's a narcissistic megalomaniac. Neat. That's not all, as he orders the squad to go apprehend and execute Zed, going back on his agreement with Zico, and also ban Zico from ever stepping foot in Utopia. Man, I really hope his death is satisfying. So because of the big celebration today, security has gotten tighter. So Noah and Kira will be assigned to the outskirts of town. They have a bit of friction, but that's because she actually has feelings for him. Zed is still out there just brooding and wondering about Amir Gall when he's jumped by Neotopian knights, who have come to take him in as per the king's command. They teleport him out of Templar, but he's able to interrupt it midway and a huge fight breaks out. Zed actually solos them all and kills a guy. I guess this moment really makes you realize and come to terms with the fact that he has a high body count. He's rescued by the same Uvarks rebels that tried to assassinate the king earlier, and they want him to join their cause with the help of Amir Gall. Now we're just rethreading plot points because this was the exact same thing that happened with Rebecca. We learn a bit of why they want to take him out. The rebel leader, Helic, used to be part of Neotopia until his clan was exiled from the country and was sent to dangerous lands. These exiles went on to form Uvarks, a nation of technology. But some of them, like Helic, are still bitter about their exile. The unique thing about the people of Uvarks is that they are naturally born shardcasters and have their bodies cybernetically enhanced to be able to wield shards. Helic tells us more about his loss, how Neotopia took his sister away from him because they saw her potential as a shardcaster, and how he's determined to find her no matter the cost. Dang, I wonder who his sister is. So anyway, here's Kira telling us about a brother she lost and barely remembers. Just as they're closing in on where Zed and the Uvarks are, Zymo and the Tuscans begin their full-scale attack on Neotopia. But even with the invasion posing a bigger threat, Noah is still dedicated to finding the rebel hideout and sends Kira back to inform the people of the danger. Noah meets Zed again. He beats Zed, and just as he's about to kill him, he sees the destruction and changes plans, rushing back to the king's side. Most of this arc is action and violence, so I'll quickly run through a few of the notable things that happen. Kira fights Almeida but is saved by Noah. Helic transports back to Uvark to request to use a super powerful artificially created spirit that is an amalgamation of other spirits, Ex Machina. They refuse to let him, but he takes it anyway. Sagiri has been caught in the chaos but is lucky enough to meet a beastman who protects her, showing us that perhaps not all beastmen are feral monsters. Templar hesitates on assisting Neotopia because of political reasons. The king shows just how selfish he is and wants Noah to be by his side and protect him during the war, and becomes a lot more possessive of him. Zed is witnessing the true horrors of war, and frankly doesn't want anything to do with it. He didn't come to this world to engage in senseless combat. This isn't why he got stronger and is honestly tired of it at this point. It's then he meets Sagiri, who parted ways with the beastman who was actually dying but didn't try to show it to her. It was pretty sad. Noah and Hugh clash, but that ends in a stalemate thanks to plot. Helic returns and faces off against his sister. They don't recognize each other. He summons Ex Machina that goes on to completely wreck shit up, making it something of an unstoppable force. Kira is caught in the crossfire and is knocked unconscious. It's then Helic finds out that this was his sister all this time. Realizing the mistake he's made summoning the monster spirit, he tries to stop it. It has other plans. He doesn't have much time left. In the arms of Zed, he apologizes and passes away. Zed and Noah meet up and they try to take it on, but Zed still can't bring out Amir Gul and Ex Machina is too strong for Satura alone. Hugh jumps into it with Pronimo and the two reluctantly work together, but this still isn't enough. Sagiri confides in Zed. This whole war, this whole fighting, she hates it. War only takes away and she's afraid it'll take Zed and Noah away from her too, leaving her all alone. And she doesn't want to be alone again. Zed reassures her that she won't end up alone. He swears to put an end to all this fighting, all this war. He's going to end it all. And just then, Amir Gul emerges. I guess all this time it's been waiting for Zed to have a strong resolve, because for most of it, Zed has just been brought along the conflict. He's never really had a reason to fight and only fought who he was told to fight. So now that he's finally fighting for his own reasons, Amir Gul chooses to respond to those feelings and fight by his side. With the three key spirits working together, Ex Machina is finally taking damage, but it's going to take a lot more to take it down. Just then, power explodes from Zed's arm and envelops Amir Gul. Looks like Amir Gul is evolving. This new form one-shots Ex Machina, turning it into mush. A cool thing about it is when it's defeated, it doesn't just dissipate like other spirits do, but remains. I guess it plays a lot into its grotesque nature. Just as it's been defeated, Hugh immediately attacks Noah. Zed tries to retaliate, but his arm seems to have had the life sucked out of it, rendering him powerless and easy picking for Hugh, capturing both of them. So now that Hugh has the two key spirits wielders, he's going to do the most logical thing and take their key spirits immediately, right? Nope, he puts them aside to go wreak some more havoc. So you can probably guess what happens next, right? That's right, they get rescued by Kira and Roya, who is just there now. While their rescue was going on, Hugh had made his way to the king, who has remained in the exact same spot since the invasion began. Just as he's about to kill the king, Zico swoops in to save the day, helping the king escape. The king's group and Noah's group reconvene at the king's statue. At the statue, the king goes on a fanatical ramble spouting nonsense about absolute law and acquiring the key spirits hidden deep underground to give it to Noah in order to make him stronger and save all of Neotopia. This is a lot of pressure for just one guy. And honestly, who can blame him? He's only 16. Zed on the other hand is trying to figure out what exactly happened to Amir Gul and his arm. Zico explains that this is just an awakening process and before he knows it, his arm will be back to normal. Just then, he collapses from exhaustion. Roya wants to heal him, but first she seeks the permission from the king. Despite everything going on, she still wants to be respectful to the laws of Neotopia and prove that she's learned her lesson. It's a nice little moment that I can't help but admire. And the king allows her. Noah has finally begun to collapse under all that pressure. The stress is getting to him. There is no way that he could possibly protect everyone as the savior. He's just one guy. Kira reassures him that he's not alone and will stick by him regardless. But it only gets worse from here. Hugh and the Zemotians show up. This time they have hostages and demand the king's head. And to show how serious they are, they actually kill a bunch of hostages right there. And they will continue to do so every hour until the king is presented to them. And you know what this bastard says? That they deserve to die because they have violated absolute law by getting caught by the enemy, which is illegal. Hell, they might as well kill themselves. What? This is the moment Noah finally begins to question what exactly he's been fighting for, and that puts him in an intense state of confusion. Gee, now of all times? Well, I guess it's better late than never. Zed can't stand this and drags the king out himself. Noah tries to stop him, but fails. In a shocking twist, the king's right hand, and also the woman who's been overseeing Noah, Diana, turns on him. Finally, someone with working brain cells. She has deemed the king as a failure, all his actions have led to the loss of thousands, and sees him as the true violator of absolute law. She lets Zed take him to Hugh, and he does. But Zed wants all that smoke and kills him right there. But plot twist, it was actually someone disguised as him. Hugh anticipated this and binds Zed. He's not going to kill him and the king just yet though. He wants to have a bit of fun before then. He hands the king a sword and commands him to kill his own people. The people, though fearing for their lives, can do nothing but apologize to the king for being hostages and violating absolute law. It's a sad sight. The king can't bring himself to do it and stabs himself instead. With his final breath, he disses Hugh. And just then, the Templar army arrives with Robes leading the charge. Robes rescues Zed, who goes on to finally settle things with Hugh. With his rage at his peak, his arm awakens again and he summons a Mirgol. And from its bird form, it transforms again, gaining a shiny new armor and finally opening its eyes for the first time. This new form overpowers Pronimo while Zed is able to put the beat down on Hugh and finally take him down for good, impaling him in the chest. And so Hugh's conquest has come to an end, with Zed passing out. As Pronimo's shroud ejects from Hugh, it's picked up by Zed's mother. To figure out why she's here, let's turn back time a bit. While Zed was dealing with Hugh back at the Stupa of Truth, Diana had made plans to take the key spirit buried underground with Noah and run away, but Zed's mother, Sarah, had beat her to it. Behold, the key spirit Monadi. Noah does try to question her but gets no answers. They fight it out, which causes the whole place to cave in on itself, giving Sarah the opportunity to slip away with Sagiri in hand. So that is how she got here. And now that she's gotten two key spirits with her, she tries to get a Mirgol, but doesn't have the time to. But she'll be back. Things come to a close quickly after that. However, Noah has been utterly defeated, his will gone. He couldn't save anyone in the end, not the king, not Sagiri, and not Diana. He remains in the rubble, overlooking Diana's lifeless body as the building collapses. His fate is left unknown. Closing things off, we get a look at the Neotopian capital. One of the leader of Tusk sits upon the throne. Almeida arrives and gives him the news of Hugh's demise and Pronimo's disappearance, and we finally get to see her face. And damn. She kinda bad though. Turns out she's been working under them the whole time and only followed Hugh to keep an eye on him. I just gotta take a moment to give some respect to Almeida. This woman is the most tenacious person in the anime. It's amazing how she survived this long considering all the things she's gotten into, never slowing down and remaining as a constant thorn to literally everyone else. And it doesn't look like she has any grander schemes. Her only joy comes from being everyone else's problem. And I can't wait to see what other hijinks she gets into. So, with the war over, everyone is trying to return to normal life. But for Zed, that war really rubbed him the wrong way and has gotten tired of fighting. He tries to confide in Zico, but Zico is like, "Oh gee, sorry buddy, but we'll need you to keep fighting to bring peace." He tries to phrase it as a necessary sacrifice Zed will have to make, but in this moment, I doubt this is what the 16-year-old boy needs to hear. What follows this is the same song and dance that we've seen like 3 times already. The country of Ovarks is attacked by Tusk. Ginga teleports to Templar to seek help from Zed, with Roya tagging along. And they return to Ovarks to face off against one of the Tusk officials, Dukem, and Her, whose name I can't remember, so I'll just be referring to her as Jessie. The Tuscans want the spirit fusing technology Uvarks has, and the lead scientist guy is actually down to giving it to them if it means he gets to further his research. Dukem and Ginga actually have some history together. Ginga was actually a Tuscan who was under the command of Dukem, but he left Tusk after he had a falling out with Dukem that led to the death of Ginga's lover, Karen. Ginga has had a grudge against him ever since. But turns out this was all a misunderstanding, and Karen's death was actually Ginga's fault because of a crucial mistake he made during a mission they had in Neotopia. He was passed out when Neotopian soldiers cornered them, and when he came to, he saw Dukem over the body of his lover and assumed he had killed her. The revelation shatters Ginga, losing the will to fight. So anyways, a big fight breaks out. Amir Gul destroys the fusion machine, which causes a huge reaction leading to the place blowing up. Only Zed and Roya are able to make it out, with Ginga left in the explosion, presumed dead. As all this was going on, we find out what happened to Sagiri. She was taken back to her people, the nomadic group called the Seekers, and looks like Sarah works for them. They refer to Sagiri as being part of the royal bloodline and their own savior, who will bring peace to all the lands and save her people. But she doesn't really care. All she wants to do is find Noah and won't believe he's dead. The Seekers then carry out a ceremony on her that brings her face to face with the key spirit, Shadeen. It says its name like a Pokemon, and is actually the first spirit to speak. And with Shadeen accepting her, she becomes the Seeker's savior. This new power of hers gives her the confidence to slip out and go find Noah herself, and she just magically ends up in Templar. She's there to ask Zed and Roya to help look for Noah, but just then, Sarah arrives. She's here to get Sagiri back. With the key spirit under her control, she easily storms the castle. In there, she meets Zico, who knows who she is. In fact, the two of them go way back, and she seems to harbor some kind of hatred towards him, but at the same time, she's grateful to him for training her and making her a powerful shardcaster. Just as these two exchange words, Zed barges in. The sight of his mother shocks him. This arc, albeit a short one, shows us the last two factions that inhabit this world, Ulvarks and the Seekers, giving us a bit of world building in the process. The world building, however, feels a bit lacking, as there really isn't a lot to go off of. This makes the world feel very small. There isn't much in terms of lore and history between the nations of the world, which makes them feel isolated. Even more so when the only time they interact with each other is when there's conflict involved. It's kind of disappointing because I really want to see what the rest of the world had to offer. They bring a lot of neat concepts to differentiate the nations, but they never really do anything with them and just throw them aside. A good example of this would be the people of Kalbu. They have these weird markings under their necks that actually lets them breathe underwater. This is something that is only mentioned in passing in a flashback towards the end of the arc that focuses on them, and even after that, we're never shown them breathing underwater. At least all the other factions have something to them that makes them distinct from each other, except Templar. Templar is just the blandest of the bunch, not having some kind of culture or anything like that. They're just humans that can be pretty chill sometimes. But all in all, the world is a pretty forgettable one. Zed comes face to face with his mother for the first time since getting isekai'd. In fact, this is the first time he's ever seen her be physically active. 1,000 questions are going through his head. However, before he can say anything to her, she leaves with a look of disgust on her face. Zed wants, no, Zed needs answers, and the only one who can give him those answers is Zico. Zico has no other choice but to finally tell him the whole truth. Taking him to a shrine that was once dedicated to Amir Gul, he tells Zed everything. Zico used to be a man obsessed with power, training people up specifically to wield Amir Gul's power. But anytime he brought someone, the spirit would reject them and I guess, kill them. Amir Gul is a spirit that chooses its own master, and there are no records of anyone actually being able to wield it. Zico was obsessed. He needed the power if he was going to change the world. But then one day, the spirit showed them a woman from another world, Sarah, and they believed she was the one chosen by the spirit. Zico wasted no time getting to her, and with very little explanation, he straight up kidnaps her, taking her away from her home world. I guess shifting between dimensions is a pretty easy feat that happens a lot more than usual. Bringing her back to the spirit shrine, it actually does react to her, and she enters a trance-like state where she sees Amir Gul for the first time. She's so captivated and entranced by its presence and power that she gets off it, you know? Yeah, I'll expand on that later. So seeing that Amirgol had accepted her, Zico began training her to her absolute limit. But then one night, Zymo attacked Templar, and in the heat of the moment, Sarah is able to call out Amirgol. But as quickly as the spirit appears, it leaves, never coming back. Sarah is heartbroken by this, and to make things even worse, Zico tells her to go back to her own world, tossing her aside since she couldn't fulfill her purpose. Man, she has every right to hate Zico. The backstory gets interrupted when news of Sarah's second attack reaches them, and Zed runs off after her. Before we continue, we come back to the Tusk officials who are up to their nefarious plannings again. But then we're introduced to a brand new character, the people the Tuscans refer to as their own savior, Lady Mirrored, and she seems pretty innocent enough, a stark contrast to the much obviously evil Tuscan officials. Back in Templar, Zico is able to find Sarah first, and this is when he drops the bombshell on her. Amirgol didn't choose her, it chose Zed, the baby in her womb. But Sarah doesn't care. She's ready to kill her own son if it means getting her hands on the spirit. But first she has to take down Zico, and just as they're about to throw hands, Roya and Sagiri show up, as well as Zed. Looking at her son, she tells him how much she loves him, but that love doesn't compare to how much she despises him. Man, Zed just can't catch a break. I legit feel bad for him. She doesn't waste time in attacking her own son, and Zed doesn't have it in him to fight back against his own mother, and she's taking full advantage of that. Before she can do some serious damage to him, Sagiri summons her key spirit to save him. Seeing as she has no chance against them, she withdraws for now. Zed wants to go after her, but Zico tries to stop him. But Zed isn't about to let Zico get in his way and fight him, but he's no match and gets taken down, and oh look, he wakes up in a prison cell again. Zico has been forced to do this because he can't have Zed fighting his own mother. He sees the way she's turned out as his fault and has taken full responsibility of taking her down. He sees it as his duty as her former master. Sarah's goal of getting Amirgol is one that's really selfish. Ever since that day she felt the power and the ecstasy that came with it, she has never stopped thinking about it. She's gotten drunk on that power and wants to get that high again. She's ready to do anything to get that spirit. She doesn't care about the wars and the calamities that will occur when all spirits come together. She just wants to be with Amirgol again because she's in love with it, or just incredibly horny for it. But I mean, can you really blame her though? While Zed has been locked up in his jail cell, the Tuscans are getting ready to launch an attack and take Amirgol by force, as well as the other spirits in Sarah's possession. Roya helps Zed get out of jail and he sets out to find his mother, who is now fighting Zico. Zico is powerless when up against two key spirits and loses the fight, and that's when Zed and Roya, along with Sagiri, who has been following them, show up. So we get the same confrontation yet again. She nabs Sagiri and threatens to kill her, but Zed tries to talk to her again, but she's not listening. All she wants is his spirit and reiterates again how she has no love for Zed. Her only love is Amirgol. This upsets him greatly, but he complies and tries to hand her the spirit. Just then, the Tuscans pop in. One of their officials, whose name is Zim, attacks Sarah, knocking her out, letting him take the spirits Monadi and Pronimo. Summoning them into the fight, Zed brings out his spirits too, and then we have a 4-way battle. And it was really cool watching Rambos and Amirgol fight together. Honestly, props to Rambos for being able to hold his own against key spirits, the same key spirits that often one-shot other spirits. Rambos has really carried Zed throughout the series and in my opinion is the real MVP of the anime. The fight doesn't last all that long because the Seekers pop in. Zim, terrified of them, withdraws for now, vowing to get Zed's spirit the next time. The Seekers meet with the Templar Council and apologize for the actions of Sarah, who had disappeared by the way, and they also take Sagiri back. He wants to follow them because he wants to know what kind of connection his mom had with them, as well as find out about his father. They agree to take him to their ship, so he bids farewell to Roya and Templar, not knowing if he'll ever return. Back in Tusk, we see Mirrored again. She's sort of in a Rapunzel situation, having spent all her life inside the castle, never knowing what the outside world is like. Jessie sees this as an opportunity to stir up some trouble and gives Mirrored the means to teleport out of the castle and see the outside world for the first time in her life, and she takes it. Blown away by how vast the sky truly is, Mirrored sets out to see more. We return to Zed and the Seekers in their weird floating jellyfish ship thing, and this is when we get some backstory on Zed's father, as well as a bit of world building. Zed's father was part of the Seekers and set out to explore newly discovered land. The land was Calm, Zed's homeworld. This confused me. Does this mean that all the lands exist on the same planet? Cause all this time we've been under the impression that Calm was a world separate from the world Zed is in now, which doesn't even have a proper name, mind you. But then it's treated as some kind of alternate dimension, but now we're made to believe that it was perhaps a continent secluded far from the main ones. Even then, the main continent has never really had any established territories, so it makes figuring out where anywhere is in relation to all the other lands hard. And the fact that everyone teleports around doesn't help things. The world building is just in shambles, I tell you. We do get a sort of proper answer to this later towards the end, but you'll find out when we get there. So Zed's father had landed in Calm to investigate, but was jumped by a Tuscan and was gravely wounded. It was then he met Sarah, who took him in and cared for him. However, the injuries he got were too severe and ultimately took his life, leaving her all alone with her unborn child. That's it. That's the backstory. It's kind of underwhelming, but I guess it's better to know than not know. The Seeker man tells Zed about the legend of Tusker and how people referred to as saviors have the power to take in all the key spirits and gain the power of Tusker. However, that could destroy the world. Zed, not wanting someone like Sagiri to take on such a responsibility, as well as tired of all the wars and fighting, decides to head to Tusk himself to put an end to it all. Returning to Tusk, we see Mirred, who's just in awe of what the world has to offer, but just then she's attacked by a monster but is saved by some mysterious fellow. Up, wait a minute, I know exactly who you are, you can't fool me, it's so obvious. This mystery man, whose name is Dolga, seems to be aware of who she is, and she's taken a liking to him and tells him about her desire to see the night sky. Though, and this is the first time this is ever mentioned, that isn't possible in Tusk because the land is forever locked in sunlight. Dolga tells her of a place that could let her see the night sky, albeit an imitation, and takes her to a cave. It's called the Cave of Toast. At the same time, one of the other Tusk officials, Gitra, is out searching for her. Gitra and Mirred are close friends. He's the only one that treats her like an actual person as opposed to the others that only see her as their savior. He also has feelings for her. He's able to find her and Dolga in the same cave, pretty easy too. Dolga leaves her in his care and leaves, saying that they'll be meeting again. As it turns out, the very next scene where the Tusk bigwigs are in their evil planning room, Zim introduces Dolga to them and the fact that he has a key spirit of his own. I wonder what I wonder what Dolga is up to. Meanwhile, Zed is ready to teleport to Tusk, but shares a moment with Sagiri. She begs him to please find Noah and save him. She can feel he's in trouble, and to aid Zed in the upcoming fights, she hands him her key spirit. He promises to find Noah and teleports away. On the other hand, Gitra has taken Mirred to his secret hideout instead of back to the castle. Gitra doesn't want her to be Tusk's savior. He doesn't want her to be a sacrifice. He wants to give her freedom, he wants to show her the world, but isn't sure how to do so because it's only a matter of time before they are eventually found. But Mirred has accepted her fate as the savior and requests to be returned to the castle. However, she has one final request: to go back to the Cave of Toast and see the imitation sky again. Before he can say anything, Tuscan soldiers storm in. Jesse had tipped them off about their location. Gitra stays behind to fight them off while Mirred runs away, and this is the first time in like 40 episodes that we see an entirely new spell, and it was pretty damn cool too. Too bad we only see it once. Mirred isn't able to go too far before she's caught, but just in the nick of time, Zed swoops in to save her. Gitra catches up to them and the two form an alliance of sorts. But just then, Dukem shows up. All he wants is revenge for the humiliation he faced back in Ovarks. At this point, he doesn't care about anything else except getting revenge. This fight is really cool, but honestly, it's just there for the sake of having action. Zed pulls up some flashy moves and takes care of Dukem, but this won't be the last time we see him. With the fight over, Gitra takes Zed back to the castle to help him get all the key spirits. He believes Zed to be the true savior that will put an end to all of this, but honestly I just think he's gassing Zed up just so Mirred won't have to do it. Zed is able to infiltrate the castle where he comes face to face with Dolga, who summons Satura. Oh my goodness, I never saw that one coming. Seeing this, Zed immediately puts 2 and 2 together. He tries to get to Noah, but he's not having any of that. Zed really doesn't want to fight him and is on the defensive, but Zim cuts in, zapping Zed unconscious in the middle of their fight, taking Amir Gul and Shadin. Zed gets thrown into a jail cell again, but he breaks the record of fastest time out because Jesse comes to set him free. Suspicious. He runs into Noah again and tries to understand what happened to him after the war. When that building had collapsed and Neotopia had fallen, Noah had lost everything. All he had was himself, his weak, fragile self who couldn't do anything. He was alone, and so he decided that he'll get his hands on strength. Strength that he'll never lose. Strength that will make anyone bow down to him. He won't be the same guy he was back at camp that always had someone helping him. No. He's going to prove how strong he is to the world and prove that he isn't weak anymore. This is why he wants the key spirits. They don't talk any longer because the guards show up, so Zed has to dip. Zed returns to Gitra's hideout. In there, he gets a one-on-one with Mirrored. With the two being saviors, they share something in common. She questions Zed about destiny and if he really intends to be the savior, to which he responds that he does. But he's doing so to end all the fighting and make sure the key spirits do not fall into the wrong hands. He feels like if he can end all the warring, he'll finally be truly strong. He wants the strength to stop fighting. He wants the strength to be free. Now that is deep. Mirrored can relate to that because she too wants nothing more than to be free, but at the same time, she has accepted being the savior because it is her fate. Fate that she cannot fight against. She has stuck by her decision to return to the castle, but before then, she slips out on her own to return to the Cave of Toast, where, as luck would have it, Noah is too. She tries to talk to Noah, but he reveals his true nature to her, demanding the key spirit inside her. Zed and Gitra show up to stop him, but so do the Tuscans too. Huge fighting breaks out with all the key spirits clashing, but our heroes are no match and get taken down. This is when Mirrod's key spirit, Dynamis, awakens. It uses its power to draw in all the key spirits into Mirrod. What everyone had feared is finally happening. The Great Tusker is reborn. But Mirrod is unable to sustain its form long enough and collapses, the spirit splitting apart and returning to her. Seeing as they've achieved their goal, Zim teleports out of there. Zed, Noah and Gitra remain. However, they haven't given up yet and are ready to go back to the castle to get it all back and save Mirrod. And just as they leave, Sarah arrives. Okay, so we're in the last few episodes of the anime, but this is when a huge problem emerges. The last few episodes are filled with unnecessary padding. They put some stuff in it that feels kind of forced and doesn't affect the climax in any way. And it's kind of annoying. It really messes with the sense of urgency the climax is trying to have, because it feels like every decision the characters make and the direction the story goes is just to stretch things out long enough to reach that 51 episode mark. We're told the beastmen have gone feral and they're attacking and cannibalizing on each other, which is never mentioned again or has any effect. And then Zed and Gitra storm the castle again pretty easily to rescue Mirrod. They get her out of there and she summons Tusker again, only for it to shatter and split apart into the other spirits, revealing that she wasn't the true savior. Amir Gaul was able to break away from the control the spirits were in cause of plot, and then Noah shows up in the last minute to loot Mirrod's unconscious body and get all the 5 key spirits. And instead of the final battle happening now, he's like, haha Zed, it's not yet time for a final battle, and nopes out of there. Also, Diana is still alive, but all she does is try to talk to Noah, but that doesn't work. So after Noah left, Zed meets his mother again, and this just feels like an interlude honestly. Also, Roya and Zico are here now. Sarah's mind is gone, desiring nothing but to get Amir Gold again, so much so that she tries to poison Zed right in front of him. Zed knows that if she takes the spirit in one more time, it'll kill her, but she doesn't care. All she wants is that climax. Frustrated at it all, he actually gives it to her. Zico tries to stop her, but he's no match for the power of Amir Gold. Roya is able to talk some sense into him and he makes up his mind to go see his mother again. But just then, Dukem is back. Again. And they fight. Again. See what I mean by unnecessary additions? Zed takes him down stylishly though, so I guess it's cool. On the other side, Sarah is facing drawbacks from using Amir Gold again. As she descends deeper and deeper, she tries to reach for the spirits. Now that she finally has it, she can finally protect everything that was important to her. But she can't remember what it is she wanted to protect. In her lustful quest for power, she has forgotten everything. But in her final moments, she remembers. She remembers the son she truly did love. But it's too late. Her life is fading. She whispers her final words to Roya, begging her to tell her son, to thank him and tell him she loves him. Rest in peace, Sarah. She went as she came. Heh. With that intermission over with, it's time for the true final battle. But before then, if you've made it this far, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing too. It would mean a lot, but hey, no pressure. So Zed and Noah finally face off. With the 5 key spirits at his call, he puts up one hell of a fight. As all-powerful as Amir Gul is, even he can't take on 5 spirits on his own. And Zed, in a moment of distraction, drops his guard, which gives Noah the upper hand to knock him out. Noah takes Amir Gul. Roya does try to step in, but Zico stops her, spouting nonsense like this is fate and destiny. But truth of the matter is, Zico really just wants to see Tusker with his own eyes. God damn it, Zico, you could have stopped things right there. With all the key spirits in him, he summons Tusker. This is when Jessie shows up. This is the moment she's been waiting for. She's dreamed of seeing Tusker all her life. But the moment she gets close, she's killed by Noah. Looks like Jessie won't be blasting off ever again. The awakening of Tusker is felt throughout the lands. And then, something wild happens. Reality slowly tears apart, revealing to us that the different nations actually existed in different dimensions, and it looks like they're all slowly starting to collapse in on each other. This was like the most satisfying reveal for me. It's now of all times that Zico realizes how foolish he was in his quest for power. This wasn't what he wanted. Stupid old man. All of this is like 40% your fault. Zed wakes up, walking up to Noah, demanding his friend back. Noah isn't exactly budging, so Roya, Zico and Zed try to fight it since it hasn't fully awoken yet, but that doesn't work. It's then that Diana reaches out to him, I guess using the power of love or something like that, but that doesn't work too. Zed and Noah clash for a bit, and this is when he slowly regains himself, triggering a flashback of the two's childhood together. Also, what is up with this chocolate? Why does it look so uncanny? Noah has done all this because all he ever really wanted to do was help Zed. He wanted to be useful because he felt it was unfair that he was always the one being helped. That's why he's been chasing after Zed. Can't say I vibe with his reasoning considering everything he's done up till this point. In a brief moment of returning to his senses, Noah calls out to Zed to help him. And in a desperate attempt to save his best friend, Zed cries out to Tusker to take him instead. And Tusker had been waiting for this all this time, leaving Noah and transferring into Zed, meaning he was the true savior all along. Tusker fully awakens now and summons all the spirits from across the world to wreak havoc. Every spirit turns against its master. Things aren't looking too good for Zico and Roya too. Roya's spirit tries to kill her, but Zico gets in the way protecting her. Looks like it's finally time for Zico to kick the bucket. Oh, I've been waiting for this. Just then, a spirit appears, one resisting the control of Tusker. This is the perfected Ex Machina, and it's controlled by none other than Ginga. While things are looking kind of grim, they end in a rather predictable way. Zico's spirit reaches Zed and tells him to remember the power of friendship and willpower and all that jazz, and then Zed snaps out of it. With the power of plot, he calls to Amir Gul and they emerge from Tusker. So they have a grand final battle filled with explosions and giant lasers. The two, in perfect sync, defeat Tusker, bringing an end to all the fighting. So all the key spirits break out and split off like the Dragon Balls. Finally, everything is over. The rampaging spirits return to their masters and peace can finally return to the land. Just before Amir Gul leaves, Zed requests to have a duel with it to truly understand the power he's had all this time, and that is when the credits roll. Tranquil times are here. We get a montage of all the characters and how they're doing now, but it feels kind of melancholic, even more so when they talk about Zed in past tense. What is really shocking to me is that Elmaida of all people is still alive. Now that is a true girl boss. The montage ends with Roya and Noah overlooking a vast field in Templar. Noah doesn't seem too good. It appears his illness has finally taken a toll on him, but they both talk about Zed and one day wish to see him again. We cut to an actual city, a new world, and sitting atop one of the buildings is Zed. But his eyes are different. He leaps off the building, sprouting wings and flying off, bringing the series to a close. KIBA was a long and interesting journey. It started out rough and frankly, I had contemplated dropping it and shelving this video several times until the halfway point. Despite all the back and forth and retreading of plot points, I ended up taking it for what it was and actually having a fun time with it. A lot of the plot twists and reveals actually had me gasping. The story was anything but predictable, I'll give it that. Though for 51 episodes, it often felt like they were throwing things at a wall and hoping something would stick and oftentimes they forced things to stick. Like, come on, did we really need Rebecca to get kidnapped like 5 times to progress the plot? The characters and their developments on the other hand weren't all that great. But I especially enjoyed Zed's character development. I genuinely hated this boy at the start of the anime because of how bratty and rude he was, but by the end, I found him really endearing. It was nice watching this kid who only wanted to fight change his views on fighting and want to put a stop to all the suffering. It was a true hero's journey, which the same could be said about 99% of the cast. As the stakes got increasingly larger, there wasn't a lot for all the other characters to do. Characters like Robes and Almeida got more than 7 episodes without making an appearance, and even when they did, it was very brief. But I guess it's better than trying to force them into the story when they had no business whatsoever being there. However, my biggest problem with the anime would be the whole shard and spirit system. On paper, this is actually a somewhat amazing system that has a lot of potential. There's just so much that could have been done with it, but the anime never fully utilizes it. All the spells are virtually the same in their application. You throw a shard and something fires at the opponent, it doesn't matter what element it is. And that's another problem. There are only 3 elements: fire, water, and lightning, and they all hit the opponent the same. There is so much that could have been expanded on, like maybe having elemental reactions where merging 2 or more elements creates varying effects. Like using water and lightning stuns enemies, or lightning and fire increases the potency of the attack. Because of the sameness of all the spells, characters only ever stuck to one element throughout the anime, and that was it. There was also no creative application or strategy to these spells at all, so in the end, fights just had the characters throwing the same effects over and over, with the victor being decided by plot. The shard system is never really explained aside from throw ball, make fire, and I am pained by this. Adding to this is the knockoff lightsabers. How they work is by adding shards into them, and you'd think this would add elemental properties or change the sword's functions, but nope, they're all just swords but with different colors. Like, have a fire sword be able to cut better, have a lightning sword be able to send shockwaves, just have anything that adds depth to the shards to make them a lot more interesting. Even the spirits too fall short of this. All spirits are functionally the same, acting as a big monster to fight your opponent's big monster, but there's no lore surrounding them or explaining why they exist. How does someone become a spirit user? Who knows? How does one spirit get stronger? They don't. And it sucks because some of them have really good designs, but are just wasted. By the end of the anime, I had gotten tired of the spirit summoning sound because it was pretty much in every episode. I'm frustrated at how the whole shard system was handled because in the end, this anime was supposed to kick off a new card collector franchise, but from this, you can't tell the direction the real world game would have taken. So what happened? Why did the anime fail to actually kick off a franchise? There are no clear reasons stated, but as I said at the beginning of the video, it probably had to do with the lawsuit the anime was involved in back in 2008, the year the anime had finished its run. Aniplex had filed a lawsuit against Upper Deck, the sponsors, for failing to pay the agreed upon amount, still owing Anidex a total of $8 million, which covered sponsorship, merchandising, and the likes. However, Upper Deck claimed that they did so because Aniplex had breached their contract and gone against their master plan for the series, which changed up the plot, stories, characters, and other elements that would have let it be cohesive enough to develop a card game off of it. They also didn't like the fact that the anime had gotten too violent, as it was initially a story geared towards children between the ages of 8 to 12. This also made it hard for the series to get approved for broadcasting. It's crazy to think that in another timeline, this series would have been an entirely different thing. Now I kinda really want to see what the original plan for it was. So hey, Editor Bread here. While I was working on this, I found out that KIBA actually had a card game printed, but it was never released outside of Japan. The most interesting thing to me about finding out about it was seeing the illustrations for Zed and Noah where they look like actual children, which means that perhaps this was what we were supposed to get instead of the aged up characters. It's crazy that we missed out on this, and I kind of wish it actually became a franchise. But oh well. I guess this lawsuit pretty much killed the series, causing it to be lost in the past. It's a shame, but I guess that's just the industry. Oh my goodness, this video was a lot. I began it as a challenge for myself, but I didn't think it'd get this long. This is like the first time I've done something like this, and I'm really proud of how it came out. But man, am I tired and my voice kind of hurts, if that makes sense. Huge thanks to all of you who stuck to the end of this. I'm really glad you did. I don't know, I think I'll do more videos like this depending on how well this is received. I don't really have a lot of words to say left, but Happy New Year, and this has been your very favorite slice of bread. I'm going to pass out. Stay toasty.